A billionaire mother installed 16 hidden cameras throughout her mansion, desperate to protect her 6-year-old son from anyone who might hurt him again. She watched every nanny fail, every caregiver break, every moment her grief-stricken child spiraled further into rage and isolation. Then came Aidan Shaw, a broken single father with nothing left to lose. What Verena Cole saw through those cameras would shatter everything she thought she knew about motherhood, trust, and the walls we build to protect ourselves from pain. This is the story of how a stranger unlocked the child no one could reach and saved a mother who'd forgotten how to live. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The crash echoed through the east wing of the Cole mansion at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, and Verena Cole didn't flinch. She simply reached for her phone, swiped past 17 unread emails, and opened the app that had become her lifeline and her curse. Camera 04, second floor playroom. The screen flickered to life, revealing the familiar scene of destruction. Milo, her 6-year-old son, her entire world, her greatest failure, stood in the center of the playroom surrounded by scattered wooden blocks, his small chest heaving, his face red and streaked with tears and snot. His hands were clenched into fists so tight his knuckles had gone white. "I hate you!" His voice cracked with the force of his rage. "I hate everything!" The nanny, Verena couldn't even remember this one's name anymore. Was it Patricia? Pamela? Stood frozen near the doorway, her back pressed against the wall, her professional composure crumbling like the tower Milo had just demolished. She was the 14th nanny in 8 months. Verena already knew she wouldn't make it to 15. "Milo, sweetheart, please." The woman's voice trembled. "If you could just take a deep breath." "Don't tell me to breathe!" Milo grabbed a plastic dinosaur from the shelf and hurled it across the room. It struck the wall with a sharp crack, leaving a small dent in the expensive wallpaper. "You don't know anything! You don't know!" Verena watched from her office 12 miles away, her jaw tight, her throat burning with tears she refused to shed. Not here, not at work, not where her board of directors might see weakness in the woman who'd built Cole Industries from her grandfather's failing textile company into a $3 billion enterprise. She'd learned early that the world devoured soft things, so she'd made herself hard. But Milo was still soft, still breakable, and she had no idea how to protect him without crushing him completely. The nanny was speaking again, her voice rising in pitch. "Milo, if you don't calm down right now, I'm going to have to call your mother." "I don't care. Call her. She won't come anyway." The word struck Verena like a physical blow. She leaned forward, her fingers white-knuckled around her phone, watching as her son collapsed onto the floor and began to sob, deep, wrenching sounds that no 6-year-old should know how to make. The nanny stood there for another 30 seconds, clearly calculating whether the 6-figure salary was worth this level of chaos. Then she straightened her shoulders, walked to where she'd left her purse on the reading chair, and picked it up. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Though whether she was speaking to Milo or to the cameras she suspected were watching, Verena couldn't tell. "I can't do this." She left the room. Milo didn't even look up. He just lay there on the floor, curled around himself, crying into the expensive Persian rug that his father had chosen 3 years ago, back when their family had still been whole. Verena closed the app, dialed her head of household. "Marcus, the nanny quit. Call the agency. Tell them we need someone by tomorrow morning." "Ms. Cole." Marcus hesitated, which was unlike him. He'd worked for her family for 20 years and had perfected the art of discretion. "The agency said they're running out of qualified candidates willing to work with Milo. They asked if we might consider alternative approaches, therapy, perhaps, or Milo has therapy, 3 sessions a week. What he needs is consistency and someone who won't abandon him the moment things get difficult." Her voice came out sharper than she'd intended. She softened it, barely. "Just find someone, Marcus. Please." "Yes, ma'am." She ended the call and sat in silence, staring at the city skyline beyond her office windows. 43 floors above Manhattan, isolated and untouchable. Just the way she'd designed her life. Her phone buzzed. Another email. Another crisis. Another reason to stay late, to miss dinner, to review the camera footage at midnight and pretend she was present in her son's life. She opened her laptop instead, pulling up the spreadsheet her assistant had prepared. A ranked list of every qualified nanny, au pair, and childcare specialist within a 50-mile radius. Most of the names were crossed out, annotated with brief explanations. Declined position, withdrew application, accepted position elsewhere. At the very bottom of the list, almost an afterthought, was a name she didn't recognize. Aidan Shaw. 34. Single parent. Previous experience: stay-at-home father, 3 years. Current employment: part-time work, various positions. References available upon request. Note: not traditional nanny background, but agency flagged as potential candidate due to personal parenting experience and immediate availability. Verena read it twice. A stay-at-home father wasn't what she'd had in mind. Her world was one of credentialed experts, degrees from prestigious institutions, documented experience with high net worth families. But she was also out of options. She forwarded the file to Marcus with a single line: interview him tomorrow, 8 a.m. Then she returned to her security app, scrolling through the 16 camera feeds that turned her home into a surveillance state. Milo's bedroom, empty. The kitchen, staff preparing dinner. The library, undisturbed. The playroom. Milo still on the floor, no longer crying, just staring at nothing. She watched him for 17 minutes until her assistant knocked to remind her about her next meeting. Then she locked her phone and became Verena Cole, CEO, once more. The woman who had everything except the ability to reach her own child. Aidan Shaw arrived at the Cole mansion at 7:52 a.m., 8 minutes early, driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic that coughed black smoke and rattled ominously every time he shifted gears. He parked it in the circular driveway between a Tesla and a Mercedes and tried not to feel like an imposter. The house was obscene, not just large. Large he could have handled, but aggressively wealthy in a way that made his stomach tight. Stone facade, tall windows, a fountain in the front lawn that probably cost more than he'd earned in the last 3 years combined. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark circles under his eyes. 2-day stubble he'd tried to shave down to respectable. A shirt he'd ironed 3 times because he couldn't afford to replace the one Arya had spilled juice on last week. His daughter. God, he missed her. He pulled out his phone, found the photo he kept in his favorites. Arya, at 4 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a drawing of the two of them. Before everything fell apart, before his ex-wife left, before the medical bills, before he'd had to move Arya in with his father-in-law just to keep her fed and safe. Soon, he promised the photo. Just a few more months. I'm going to bring you home. He pocketed the phone and got out of the car. The front door opened before he could knock. A man in his 60s, impeccably dressed, regarded him with the neutral expression of someone who'd perfected the art of judgment. Mr. Shaw? Yes, sir. I'm Marcus Bentley, head of household. Please come in. The interior was even more intimidating than the exterior. Marble floors, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a museum, a staircase that curved upward like something from a fairy tale. Aidan felt suddenly, viscerally aware of the hole in his left sock. Marcus led him through a series of hallways, past rooms Aidan couldn't even begin to name the purpose of, until they reached a small office near the back of the house. Ms. Cole is currently in meetings in the city, so I'll be conducting the preliminary interview. Please, sit. Aidan sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than his car. Marcus settled behind the desk, opening a thin folder. I'll be frank with you, Mr. Shaw. Your application is unconventional. You have no formal childcare training, no certification, no professional references from families we can verify. The agency included you as what they termed a creative solution to a difficult situation. Marcus looked up, his eyes sharp. Can you tell me why you think you're qualified for this position? Aidan had practiced this answer in his car during the 40-minute drive. He'd rehearsed it in the shower, over breakfast, in the waiting room at his second job where he mopped floors at a gym 3 nights a week. But now, sitting here in this palace of wealth, all his practiced words felt hollow. So he told the truth instead. I'm not qualified, he said quietly. Not by any measure you probably use. I don't have degrees or certifications. I haven't worked for diplomats or celebrities, but I know what it's like to be a kid who's scared and angry and doesn't know how to make sense of the world anymore. I know what it's like to be the parent who has to hold it together when everything's falling apart. He met Marcus's eyes. The agency told me about Milo. They said he's been through trauma, that he's struggling, that nobody seems to be able to reach him. That's correct. Then maybe he doesn't need someone with perfect credentials. Maybe he just needs someone who won't give up on him. The silence stretched. Marcus studied him with an intensity that made Aiden want to squirm, but he held still, held eye contact, refused to look away. Finally, Marcus closed the folder. The position pays $80,000 annually. Hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., with occasional overnight stays if Ms. Cole needs to travel. You'll have your own room in the staff wing, health insurance included. He paused. But I need to be clear about something, Mr. Shaw. This is not a normal childcare position. Milo is brilliant and sensitive and currently very, very damaged. He will test you. He will push every boundary. He will try to make you leave, because everyone else has. I won't leave, Aiden said. 14 people before you have said the same thing. Then I'll be the 15th who means it. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or hope. Ms. Cole has security cameras throughout the house, for Milo's safety. You'll be monitored. Aiden nodded. He'd expected as much. That's fine. Then let me introduce you to Milo. They found him in this playroom, the same room where he'd destroyed the tower yesterday, though someone had cleaned up all evidence of the destruction. Milo sat in the corner near the window, building something with blocks, his back to the door. He didn't look up when they entered. Milo, Marcus said gently, this is Mr. Shaw. He's going to be spending time with you starting today. No response. Milo added another block to his structure, some kind of wall, Aiden realized, tall and defensive. Marcus glanced at Aiden, a silent question. Your move. Aiden crossed the room slowly, giving Milo space, and lowered himself to the floor about 6 feet away. Not hovering, not invading, just present. He sat cross-legged, wincing slightly at the protest in his knees, and watched Milo build. That's a good wall, Aiden said after a minute. Strong foundation. You planning to make it a castle? Milo's hand stilled, but he didn't turn around. It's not a castle. What is it? It keeps people out. Aiden nodded, even though Milo couldn't see him. Makes sense. Walls are good for that. You should go away. I could, Aiden agreed, but I just got here, and I drove a really long way. My car made this sound like a dying robot the whole time. It was pretty embarrassing. Despite himself, Milo's shoulders shifted slightly. Not quite a laugh, but close. Why did you come if your car is stupid? Because I heard there was a kid here who likes building things, and I'm pretty good at building things too. Thought maybe we could build something together. He paused. But if you'd rather build alone, that's okay too. I can just sit here and be quiet. I'm good at that. Milo finally turned around. He was small for 6, with dark hair that fell into his eyes, and a face that was all sharp angles and suspicion. He studied Aiden with the intensity of someone much older, searching for lies. What do you want to build? Milo asked finally. What do you want to build? You're just going to copy my answer. Probably, Aiden admitted. I'm not very creative before 9 a.m. I mostly just copy whatever smart people tell me. Milo considered this. Then he pushed a pile of blocks toward Aiden. You can build a house, but not near my wall. The wall is mine. Deal. They built in silence for a while. Aiden constructed a simple house, nothing fancy, while Milo extended his wall, making it longer, higher, more impenetrable. Marcus watched from the doorway for a few minutes, then quietly left. After 20 minutes, Milo spoke again. Do you have kids? Yeah, a daughter. Her name's Aria. She's 4. Where is she? She lives with her grandpa right now, in a different state. Why? Aiden chose his words carefully. Because sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. And right now the best choice for Aria is to be somewhere stable and safe while I work on making things better. Milo added another block to his wall. My dad died. The words were flat, factual, devastating. I know, Aiden said quietly. I'm really sorry. Everyone says that. Sorry doesn't bring him back. No, it doesn't. And my mom doesn't even care. She's never here. She just works all the time. Aiden looked at the boy, saw the anger and hurt written in every line of his small body, and recognized something he'd seen in the mirror. I bet she cares a lot. Sometimes when people are really sad, they don't know how to show it, so they hide in work or other things because it feels safer than feeling sad. That's stupid. Yeah, Aiden agreed. It kind of is. Milo knocked down part of his wall, then immediately started rebuilding it. Are you going to quit like everyone else? No. They all say that. I'm not them. How do I know? Aiden met his eyes. You don't, not yet. But I'm going to show up every day, and eventually you'll see I mean it. Milo stared at him for a long moment. Then he pushed another pile of blocks toward Aiden. Your house needs a roof. It's a stupid house without a roof. You're absolutely right, Aiden said, and started building. Done. 12 miles away in her office overlooking Manhattan, Verena Cole watched the entire exchange on her phone. She'd been in a budget meeting when the notification came through. Camera 04. Motion detected. She'd excused herself, claiming an urgent call, and locked herself in the executive bathroom to watch. Now she stood in that bathroom, her back against the cold marble wall, staring at the screen. The new hire, Aiden Shaw, sat on her son's playroom floor like he belonged there. No expensive suit, no artificial cheerfulness, no frustrated sighs when Milo gave short, hostile answers. Just quiet presence. Patience. The kind of ease around children that came from actual experience, not training manuals. When Milo pushed the blocks toward him and called his house stupid, Aiden had smiled. Not a fake, patronizing smile, but genuine amusement. And Milo, her beautiful broken boy who'd been screaming at strangers for months, was building beside him. Verena's hand trembled slightly as she paused the feed, zooming in on her son's face. He looked focused, calm. Not happy, not yet, but not drowning either. She closed her eyes, leaning her head back against the wall. Please, she thought, a prayer to no one in particular. Please let this one work. Then she straightened her jacket, checked her reflection, and went back to her meeting, where she negotiated a $40 million merger without once revealing that her mind was 12 miles away, watching a stranger unlock the child she couldn't reach. The first week passed in a careful dance of boundaries and broken expectations. Aiden arrived every morning at 7 a.m., bringing with him the quiet steadiness that seemed to drain tension from rooms. He didn't try to force conversation or activities. He followed Milo's lead, offering options but never demands, sitting in comfortable silence when Milo needed space. The tantrums didn't stop. On Wednesday, Milo threw a cup of juice across the kitchen when Aiden suggested they make sandwiches together. On Friday, he locked himself in his bedroom for 3 hours, refusing to come out even for lunch. But something was shifting. Aiden could feel it in the small moments. Milo asking what Arya liked to eat. Milo showing him a drawing without being prompted. Milo sitting closer during their afternoon reading sessions. And in her office, her apartment, her car during the evening commute, Verena watched. She watched Aiden clean up the spilled juice without anger, explaining gently but firmly that throwing things wasn't okay, but that being upset was. She watched him sit outside Milo's locked door and read a story aloud, his voice carrying through the wood, waiting patiently until the lock finally clicked open. She watched him crouch down to Milo's eye level for every conversation, never towering, never using his size to intimidate. She watched, and something inside her chest cracked open just a little bit. By the end of the second week, Marcus pulled Aiden aside after Milo had gone to bed. "You're doing well," Marcus said, which from him was the equivalent of a standing ovation. "Better than well." Milo's therapist called Ms. Cole yesterday. She said he's been more communicative in their sessions, talking about his feelings instead of just acting them out. Aiden felt relief flood through him. "That's good. That's really good. Ms. Cole wanted me to tell you," Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "She wanted me to tell you thank you. She's noticed the changes." "She's watching the cameras," Aiden said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "That doesn't bother me. If I were her, I'd do the same thing." He paused. "Can I ask you something about what happened to Milo's father?" Marcus's expression shuddered slightly, but he nodded. "Car accident, 18 months ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. Mr. Cole died instantly. Ms. Cole and Milo were in the car, but they survived with minor injuries. His voice dropped. Minor physical injuries. Aiden's chest tightened. God. Milo was in a booster seat in the back. He saw everything. The therapy helps, but Marcus shook his head. Some things you can't unsee. And Ms. Cole, she threw herself into work. It's how she copes, how she's always coped. But Milo interpreted her absence as abandonment. He thinks she doesn't care about him. He thinks she cares more about her company than about him. Aiden was quiet for a moment. Does she know he feels that way? I believe she suspects. But Ms. Cole doesn't know how to bridge that gap. She never learned how to be vulnerable, even with her own child, especially with her own child. Marcus met Aiden's eyes. That's why you're so important. You're showing Milo what healthy emotional expression looks like. And whether she admits it or not, you're showing Ms. Cole too. Done. 3 weeks into the job, Aiden took Milo to the garden behind the mansion, a sprawling space that had been professionally maintained but clearly never used for anything other than aesthetics. You ever plant anything before? Aiden asked, kneeling beside a cleared patch of soil, various seed packets spread between them. Milo shook his head. It's pretty cool. You put this tiny seed in the dirt, give it water and sunlight, and eventually it becomes something big, like magic, but real. He held up a packet of sunflower seeds. Want to try? They planted 6 seeds, Milo's small hands patting the soil carefully after each one. He was meticulous, serious, approaching the task with the same intensity he brought to everything. What if they don't grow? Milo asked when they were done. Then we plant more seeds and try again. But what if those don't grow either? Then we keep trying until something does. Aiden wiped dirt from his hands. That's the thing about growing stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work the first time, or the second time, or even the 10th time. But you keep trying anyway, because the trying matters even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. Milo looked at him seriously. Are you talking about plants? Or about me? Aiden smiled. Maybe both. That night, Verena watched the footage 3 times. She watched Milo laugh when dirt got under his fingernails. She watched Aiden explain photosynthesis in a way that made it sound like a story. She watched her son carefully water the planted seeds, then stand guard over them for 20 minutes like a small, determined sentinel. And she cried. Not in her office, not in the bathroom, but in her bedroom with the lights off, where no one could see and no cameras could capture her breaking apart. She cried for her husband, for her son, for the mother she'd failed to become, for the fear that had turned her into a ghost in her own home. When the tears finally stopped, she lay in the darkness and thought about Aiden Shaw, this stranger who'd walked into her carefully controlled world and exposed every crack in her armor. She should have felt threatened, should have felt defensive. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. By week 4, Milo started asking when Aiden would arrive each morning. He'd wait by the front windows, watching for the rattling Honda Civic, then run to greet him at the door. You're late, Milo announced one Monday morning when Aiden arrived at 7:03. 3 minutes. I got stuck behind a garbage truck. You should leave earlier. You're probably right. Aiden ruffled his hair, which Milo allowed without pulling away. What should we do today? Reading first, then building, then lunch, then... Milo paused, looking uncertain. Can we plant more seeds? Absolutely. They fell into routines. Reading after breakfast, usually books Milo chose from the extensive library. Everything from dinosaur encyclopedias to fantasy novels way above his reading level, which Aiden would patiently explain. Building projects in the afternoon, increasingly complex structures that sprawled across the playroom floor. Gardening when the weather permitted, Milo religiously checking his sunflower patch every day for signs of growth. And talking. So much talking. Milo talked about his father, memories that came in fragments, some happy, some confused, all tinged with loss. He talked about his mother, his voice going flat and careful whenever he mentioned her. He talked about school, which he'd stopped attending after the accident, his education now handled by a series of tutors who came and went. He talked about being scared and angry and lonely, his vocabulary for emotions growing more sophisticated each week. Aiden listened, always listened, never dismissed or minimized, just made space for whatever Milo needed to say. Why do you listen so much? Milo asked one afternoon. They were on the floor, Milo drawing while Aiden sorted through building materials. Other grown-ups always try to fix things. You just listen. Because sometimes people don't need things fixed, Aiden said. Sometimes they just need to be heard. Is that what your daughter needs? To be heard? The question caught Aiden off guard. He set down the blocks he'd been holding. Yeah, I think so. Do you miss her? Every day. Then why don't you live with her? It was the question Aiden had been dreading and expecting in equal measure. He took a breath, choosing honesty. Because right now, I can't give her the kind of home she deserves. Her grandpa has a house, a yard, stability. I have a studio apartment and 2 part-time jobs, but I'm working on it. That's why I took this job, so I can save money and bring her home. Milo was quiet for a moment. Then, she's lucky. What do you mean? You miss her. You're working hard to be with her again. She's lucky you want to be with her. The pain in those words was a punch to Aiden's chest. He shifted closer, waiting until Milo looked at him. Milo, your mom wants to be with you. I know it doesn't feel like that right now, but I promise you, she does. Then why is she never here? Because she's scared. And when people are scared, sometimes they do things that don't make sense, that hurt people they love. He paused. But that doesn't mean the love isn't there. Milo went back to his drawing, a house with 4 windows, a door, and 2 stick figures in front. I drew you and Arya. Can I see? Milo held it up. The figures were smiling, holding hands, standing in front of a sunflower that was taller than the house. It's beautiful, Aiden said, his throat tight. You can keep it, for when you miss her. Aiden took the drawing carefully, like the treasure it was. Thank you, buddy. That night, Verena watched the exchange through tears she didn't bother to wipe away. She watched Aiden fold the drawing gently and slip it into his wallet. She watched Milo lean against his shoulder, comfortable in a way he'd never been with anyone else. And she realized with startling clarity that she wasn't just watching to protect Milo anymore. She was watching because she couldn't look away, because Aiden Shaw had done something impossible. He'd made her want to be present in her own life again. The cameras had shown her everything. Now she just had to figure out what to do with what she'd seen. The morning everything shifted began like any other, with Verena in her office reviewing quarterly projections while secretly watching Camera 04. Milo and Aiden were in the kitchen, making pancakes, or rather, making an extraordinary mess that would have sent any of the previous nannies into cardiac arrest. Flour dusted every surface. Eggshells littered the counter. Milo stood on a step stool, wielding a whisk like a weapon, attacking the batter with more enthusiasm than technique. You're supposed to stir it gently, Aiden said, laughing as batter splattered onto his shirt. Not murder it. But it's lumpy. I hate lumps. Lumps are fine. They cook out. Here, let me show you. Aiden guided Milo's hand, demonstrating the circular motion. See? Smooth, but not too much. If you overmix it, the pancakes get tough. How do you know that? Arya taught me. She's very particular about her pancakes. Milo's whisking slowed. What's she like? Arya? The question caught Aiden mid-reach for the vanilla extract. He set the bottle down carefully, considering. She's funny. Really funny. She tells these jokes that don't quite make sense, but she laughs so hard at them that you can't help laughing too. His voice softened. And she's brave. Braver than I was at her age. When things got hard, when her mom left and we had to move her to Grandpa's house, she didn't cry. She just held my hand and said, "It's okay, Daddy. We're going to be okay." Is she right? I'm trying to make her right. Milo poured batter onto the griddle with Aiden's help, watching the bubbles form across the surface. If you bring her here, can I meet her? If I bring her here? Aiden smiled. When I bring her here. And yeah, buddy, I'd like that a lot. Do you think she'd like me? The vulnerability in that question made Aiden's chest ache. Are you kidding? She'd love you. You could teach her how to build those amazing towers you make, and show her your drawings. And the garden. She'd go crazy for the garden. Really? Really? Milo flipped the pancake with intense concentration, his tongue poking out slightly. When it landed perfectly, he grinned, a real, unguarded smile that transformed his entire face. I did it. You absolutely did. That's a professional level flip right there. They ate the pancakes at the kitchen island, Milo insisting on drowning his in enough syrup to constitute a health hazard. He chattered about the sunflowers, which had finally sprouted, tiny green shoots pushing through the soil like miracles. About the book they were reading, the story about dragons and friendship that Milo insisted was scientifically inaccurate but emotionally satisfying. About everything and nothing, the words spilling out in a way that had become natural over the past month. Verena watched it all, her coffee growing cold in her hand. She watched the easy affection between them, the way Milo leaned into Aiden's space without fear, the way Aiden listened like every word Milo said mattered. And she felt the guilt rise like bile in her throat. This should be her. She should be the one making pancakes, hearing about the sunflowers, receiving those unguarded smiles. But she'd locked herself away in grief and work, built walls even higher than the ones Milo constructed with his blocks, and now a stranger was living the life she'd abandoned. Her phone buzzed, her assistant reminding her about the board meeting in 30 minutes. She closed the app, straightened her shoulders, and became the version of herself the world expected to see. But the image of Milo's smile stayed with her through every presentation, every decision, every moment she should have been focused on business, but found herself thinking about home. The days blurred together in a rhythm that felt almost normal. Aiden showed up every morning at 7, never late, never making excuses. He taught Milo how to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl, how to tie his shoes using the bunny ear method, how to breathe through anger instead of drowning in it. They built elaborate cities from blocks, painted pictures that Marcus hung on the refrigerator, read until Milo's eyes grew heavy. And the tantrums, while not gone completely, became less frequent, less intense, more like the normal frustrations of a 6-year-old and less like the screams of someone drowning. Milo's therapist, Dr. Chen, called Verena directly one Tuesday afternoon. "I wanted to update you on Milo's progress," she said, her voice warm. "The changes over the past month have been remarkable. He's engaging more, expressing his emotions verbally instead of physically. He even talked about his father without shutting down completely." Verena's grip tightened on her phone. "That's good. That's really good." "It is. And I think a lot of it has to do with the stability you've provided through Mr. Shaw. Milo talks about him frequently, calls him Aiden with real affection." Dr. Chen paused. "But, Verena, there's something else we need to address." "What?" "Milo's attachment to Aiden is healthy and important, but he also needs attachment to you. He needs to know that his mother is present and available, not just physically, but emotionally. Right now, he sees Aiden as his primary caregiver and you as," she chose her words carefully, "an absence, a ghost in his own home." The words landed like blows. Verena closed her eyes, pressing her fingers against the bridge of her nose. "I know. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because I think you're ready to hear it. You've survived the immediate crisis of losing your husband. You've kept your company running, kept Milo safe, and cared for. But surviving isn't the same as living. And Milo needs you to start living again." "I don't know how," Verena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then maybe it's time to learn. Talk to Aiden. Watch how he interacts with Milo. Let yourself be vulnerable with your son, even though it's terrifying." Dr. Chen's voice gentled. "You can't hide behind cameras forever." After the call ended, Verena sat in silence for 20 minutes. Then she opened her laptop and pulled up the camera feeds, watching the only way she knew how. That evening, something changed. Verena arrived home at 6:30 instead of 9, walking through the front door to the sound of laughter from the playroom. She stood in the hallway, frozen, listening to Milo's giggles and Aiden's deeper chuckle. Marcus appeared beside her, silent as always. "They've been playing some kind of building game. I believe it involves dinosaurs attacking a city." "He sounds happy." "He is happy. Mr. Shaw has been good for him." Verena nodded, not trusting her voice. She should go to them, should walk into that room and be part of whatever joy they'd created. But her feet wouldn't move, paralyzed by the certainty that she'd ruin it somehow, bring her grief and awkwardness into their perfect bubble and pop it. So she did what she always did. She went to her study, closed the door, and watched them through the screen instead. The weekend arrived, and for the first time in months, Verena didn't go to the office. She wandered the mansion like a stranger, unsure what to do with unstructured time. She found herself gravitating toward wherever Milo and Aiden were, hovering in doorways, watching from distances that felt safe. On Saturday afternoon, she walked past the garden and saw them kneeling by the sunflower patch. The shoots had grown tall enough that Milo could measure them against his palm, marveling at the progress. "They're getting so big," Milo's voice carried across the yard. "That's because you take such good care of them. Water, sunlight, talking to them. You're doing everything right." "You talk to plants?" "Sometimes. My mom used to say it helped them grow. I don't know if it's scientifically true, but it can't hurt." Milo leaned down, putting his face close to the tallest shoot. "Grow big and strong," he whispered. "You can do it." Verena's throat closed. She turned away before they could see her, pressing her back against the side of the house, fighting tears. This was her son. Her beautiful, resilient son who'd survived trauma and loss and her own inadequacy as a mother. And he was healing, growing, finding joy again. Without her. Because of her absence. She went back inside, climbed the stairs to her bedroom, and for the first time since installing the cameras, she considered turning them off. Not because she trusted Aiden, though she did, she realized completely, but because watching was no longer enough. It was becoming torture, showing her everything she was missing, everything she'd failed to be. But she couldn't bring herself to delete the app. Not yet. So she compromised, setting it aside on her nightstand and forcing herself to spend the rest of the weekend doing other things. Reading, answering emails, existing in her own home without constant surveillance. It felt like withdrawal. Monday morning brought another shift. Verena had a breakfast meeting in the city that ran late, which meant she wasn't at her desk for Aiden's arrival. But at 10:30, during a brief break, she pulled out her phone. The kitchen camera showed Aiden and Milo baking something, cookies maybe, from the chocolate chips scattered across the counter. But it was what she heard that stopped her breath. "Aiden?" Milo's voice was quieter than usual. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why doesn't my mom like being around me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Aiden set down the spoon he'd been holding, his expression careful. "Milo, your mom loves you so much." "Then why is she never here?" "Because..." Aiden crouched down to Milo's level, his voice gentle but honest. "Because sometimes when people lose someone they love, they forget how to be close to other people. They get scared that if they love too much, they'll lose again. So they put up walls and hide behind work or other things, not because they don't care, but because they care so much it hurts." "That's stupid." "Yeah," Aiden agreed. "It kind of is. But people do stupid things when they're scared." "Is that what you did? When Arya's mom left?" The question clearly caught Aiden off guard. He sat back on his heels, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, I did. I got so caught up in trying to fix everything, in working multiple jobs and keeping everything together, that I forgot to actually be present with Arya. I thought providing for her was the same as being there for her, but it's not. Did you figure it out? I'm trying to. That's why I took this job, so I could build a life where I can actually be the dad she deserves. He paused. And I think your mom is trying to figure it out too. She just doesn't know how yet. Milo was quiet for a long moment, shaping cookie dough with intense focus. Do you think she'll ever learn? I think she wants to, and wanting to is the first step. Verena's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She excused herself from the meeting, found an empty conference room, and locked herself inside. Then she watched the footage again. And again, Aiden's words echoing in her head. Sometimes when people lose someone they love, they forget how to be close to other people. She just doesn't know how yet. Wanting to is the first step. She wanted to. God, she wanted to so desperately it felt like drowning. But the gap between wanting and doing felt impossibly wide, and she had no idea how to bridge it. Her phone rang. Marcus. Ms. Cole, I apologize for interrupting, but we have a situation. Her heart dropped. What happened? Is Milo... Milo is fine, but Mr. Shaw received a call about an hour ago. Family emergency. His daughter is sick and he needs to fly out tonight to see her. Marcus hesitated. He asked if he could leave early today. I told him, of course, but that means Milo will need coverage for the rest of the week. Should I call the agency? No. The word came out sharper than intended. No, don't call anyone. I'll come home. I'll take care of Milo myself. The silence on the other end was deafening. Ms. Cole, are you certain? I could reach out to Marcus. He's my son. I should be able to take care of my own son for a few days. Her voice cracked slightly. Please don't call anyone else. I'll leave now. She ended the call, gathered her things, and left the office building without explanation. The drive home took 45 minutes through midday traffic, 45 minutes of panic and doubt spiraling through her mind. What if Milo didn't want her there? What if she made everything worse? What if she couldn't do this? But the alternative, calling in another stranger while Aiden was gone, felt impossible. Milo had already attached to Aiden. Having him disappear, even temporarily, would be hard enough without adding another new person to the mix. She pulled into the driveway at 12:15. Through the front windows, she could see Aiden in the foyer, a small duffel bag at his feet, kneeling in front of Milo. Verena walked in quietly, catching the tail end of their conversation. Just for a few days, buddy. I'll be back Friday, I promise. But what if Arya is really sick? What if you need to stay longer? Milo's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Then I'll call you and explain everything, and we'll figure it out together. But I'm not disappearing. I'm not leaving for good. This is just temporary. Everyone says things are temporary, and then they never come back. Aiden pulled Milo into a hug, holding him close. I know. I know people have broken that promise to you before, but I won't. I swear to you, Milo, I will come back. You promise? I promise. Verena cleared her throat softly. They both turned, Milo's expression immediately shuddering when he saw her. Mr. Shaw? She said, her voice steadier than she felt. I heard about your daughter. I hope she's all right. Aiden stood, releasing Milo reluctantly. Thank you, Ms. Cole. Her grandfather said it's just a bad fever, but she's been asking for me. I need to see her. Of course. Take as much time as you need, and please... She hesitated, then reached into her purse, pulling out her personal credit card. Use this for any medical expenses, or travel costs, whatever you need. He stared at the card like it might bite him. Ms. Cole, I can't... You can. Consider it a bonus. Or an advance on your salary. I don't care what you call it, but if your daughter needs care, she should have it without you worrying about cost. Her voice softened. Go take care of your child, Mr. Shaw. That's what matters. For a moment, Aiden looked like he might argue. Then he took the card carefully, slipping it into his wallet. Thank you. I'll pay you back. Let's worry about that later. He grabbed his bag, then crouched down one more time in front of Milo. Remember what we talked about. Your mom loves you. Give her a chance, okay? Milo nodded, not looking convinced, and Aiden stood meeting Verena's eyes with an intensity that made her breath catch. He's scared of being alone with you, not because he doesn't love you, but because he doesn't know if you love him. Show him. However you can, just show him. Then he was gone, the front door closing behind him, leaving Verena alone with her son for the first time in longer than she could remember. Milo stood in the foyer, his arms crossed, his expression guarded. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. So, Verena said finally, her voice coming out awkward and too formal. What should we do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I asked you first. You're the grown-up. You're supposed to decide. Verena took a breath, forcing herself to be honest. Milo, I don't know what we should do. I don't know what you like to do anymore. I don't know your routines or your favorite foods or what makes you happy, and that's my fault. She struggled for words. I've been hiding. From you, from my feelings, from everything, and I'm sorry. Milo's arms tightened around himself. Aiden says you're sad about Daddy. Aiden's right. I am sad about Daddy every single day. Me too. I know, sweetheart. I know you are. Then why can't we be sad together instead of you being sad at work? The question broke something in her chest. She knelt down, bringing herself to his level the way she'd seen Aiden do 100 times through the cameras. Because I was scared that if I let myself feel sad around you, I wouldn't be able to stop. And I thought you needed me to be strong. I don't need you to be strong. I need you to be here. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. You're right. You're absolutely right. Milo watched her cry with wide eyes, like he'd never seen her do it before. He probably hadn't. She'd hidden every tear, every moment of weakness, afraid that showing vulnerability would shatter the last pieces of their broken family. But maybe hiding was what had shattered them instead. Mom? Milo's voice was small. Are you okay? No, she admitted. I'm not okay. But maybe that's all right. Maybe we don't have to be okay all the time. Slowly, carefully, Milo stepped forward. He wrapped his small arms around her neck, and Verena pulled him close, holding him the way she should have been holding him for months. He smelled like sunshine and chocolate chips and everything she'd been missing. I love you, she whispered into his hair. I love you so much, Milo. I'm so sorry I made you doubt that. I love you too, Mom. They stayed like that for a long time, kneeling on the marble floor of the foyer, holding each other while the afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows. Eventually, Milo pulled back, wiping his nose on his sleeve. Aiden and I were making cookies before he left. They're probably ready to go in the oven now. Would you want help with that? Milo considered her seriously. Do you know how to make cookies? I used to, before I started buying them from fancy bakeries. She managed a small smile. But I'm willing to learn again, if you'll teach me. Okay, but you have to do exactly what I say. Aiden taught me the right way. Deal. They went to the kitchen together, where the cookie dough waited in neat rows on baking sheets. Verena preheated the oven while Milo explained each step with the seriousness of a general planning military strategy. You have to set the timer for exactly 12 minutes. Not 11, not 13. 12. 12 minutes. Got it. And you can't open the oven to check on them. Aiden says that lets out the heat and makes them cook weird. No opening the oven. Understood. They slid the trays in and set the timer. While they waited, Milo pulled out the drawings he'd been working on. Elaborate scenes of dragons and castles, and in one corner, stick figures that Verena recognized as himself, Aiden, and Arya. These are beautiful, she said, studying them carefully. You're really talented. Aiden says art is about expressing feelings, not about making it perfect. Aiden sounds very wise. He is. Milo paused. Do you think he's okay? Do you think Arya's really sick, or if it's something worse? The worry in his voice made Verena's heart ache. I think Arya is going to be fine, and I think Aiden will take good care of her just like he takes good care of you. He promised he'd come back. Then he'll come back. He seems like someone who keeps his promises. The timer beeped. They pulled out the cookies, slightly overdone on the edges but otherwise perfect, and ate them warm at the kitchen island, chocolate melting on their fingers. Milo chattered about the sunflowers, about the book he and Aiden were reading, about everything and nothing, and Verena listened with an attention she hadn't given anything in months. That evening, after dinner that Marcus had prepared because Verena's cooking skills had atrophied beyond repair, Milo asked if she'd read him a bedtime story. They went to his room, where Verena hadn't been in weeks, and she looked around at how much had changed. Drawings covered the walls, Milo's artwork, colorful and chaotic and beautiful. The bookshelf had been reorganized, clearly by someone who cared about categorization. The bed had new sheets, dark blue with constellations. Aiden picked those out, Milo said, following her gaze. He said everyone needs stars to look at before they fall asleep. Verena's throat tightened. She settled on the edge of the bed while Milo climbed under the covers, holding up a thick fantasy novel. This one. We're on chapter 7. She read until her voice grew hoarse, until Milo's eyes drooped and his breathing evened out. Then she sat there in the dim light of his constellation sheets, watching him sleep, and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd nearly lost. Her phone buzzed quietly. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Cole, it's Aiden. Arya's fever broke. She's going to be fine. Just wanted you to know so you could tell Milo in the morning. And thank you again for the card. You didn't have to do that. She typed back carefully. I'm glad she's okay. And yes, I did have to. Please don't worry about money. Just focus on your daughter. A moment later. How did today go? She stared at the question for a long time before responding. It was hard. and scary, and the best day I've had in 18 months. Thank you for pushing me to try. You're the one who showed up. That's the hardest part. Will you really come back Friday? I promised Milo I would, and I keep my promises. Verena looked at her sleeping son, at the peace on his face that she'd seen so many times through cameras but never in person. Then she looked at her phone, at this stranger who'd become essential, and typed one more message. We'll be here. Both of us. She stood quietly, turning off the light but leaving the door cracked open the way Milo liked it. Then she went to her own room, pulled out her phone one last time, and did something she hadn't done in 4 weeks. She opened the security app and deleted every indoor camera feed. Not permanently. She could reinstall them later if needed. But for now, for tonight, she chose trust over surveillance, chose presence over watching, chose to believe that some things didn't need to be monitored to be real. The week passed in a strange, stumbling dance of learning. Verena worked from home, taking meetings in her study but emerging regularly to check on Milo. They made meals together, chaotic, messy attempts that often required Marcus's intervention. They read every evening, working through the fantasy novel at a pace that felt both too fast and achingly slow. They talked about Daddy, tentatively at first, then more openly, sharing memories that hurt less when spoken aloud. And Milo, cautiously, began to trust that maybe his mother wasn't going to disappear again. On Thursday night, he asked if they could FaceTime Aiden. Verena hesitated. It felt like crossing some professional boundary, but the hope in Milo's eyes made her dial the number Aiden had texted from. He answered on the third ring, his face appearing on screen with a tired smile. Behind him, Verena could see a small, cluttered living room. "Hey, buddy." Aiden's expression brightened. "I was just thinking about you." "Hi, Aiden. Mom and I made spaghetti tonight and it was really bad, but we ate it anyway." Aiden laughed. "That's the spirit. How are the sunflowers?" "Still growing. I measured them this morning. They're almost up to my knee now." They talked for 15 minutes, Milo filling Aiden in on every detail of the past 4 days. Then a small face appeared beside Aiden's, a little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes. "Is that Milo?" she asked shyly. "Sure is." "Milo, this is Arya. Arya, this is my friend Milo I've been telling you about." "Hi," Milo said, suddenly shy himself. "Are you feeling better?" Arya nodded. "Uh-huh. Daddy made me soup and read me stories, and now my fever is gone." "That's good. Aiden is really good at taking care of people." "I know. He's the best daddy." Verena watched the interaction, saw the gentleness in how Aiden spoke to both children, the easy affection. And she saw something else, too, the worn couch behind them, the crack in the wall that had been poorly patched, the exhaustion in Aiden's eyes that he tried to hide behind smiles. This man had walked into her palace of wealth and privilege and asked for nothing, had cared for her son with a devotion that required no payment beyond a fair salary, had kept his own struggles invisible because that wasn't Milo's burden to carry. After they said goodbye and ended the call, Milo turned to her seriously. "Mom, can we help them?" "What do you mean?" "Aiden and Arya, they don't have a nice house like us, and Aiden works really hard, but he can't bring her home yet. Can we help them?" Verena pulled him onto her lap, this child who'd survived so much loss and still had room in his heart for other people's pain. "I think we can figure something out. But Milo, we have to be careful. Some people are proud. They don't like feeling like they need help. Aiden's not proud. He's just sad that he can't be with Arya all the time. Then we'll think of a way to help that doesn't feel like charity, okay?" "Okay." That night, after Milo was asleep, Verena sat in her study and thought about the cameras she'd deleted, about the surveillance she'd relied on instead of participation, about the fact that she'd learned more about Aiden in 4 days of actual interaction than in 4 weeks of watching through screens. She'd seen him caring for Milo, but she'd never seen his own life, his own struggles, the weight he carried alone, and she'd never asked. Friday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made Milo bounce off walls. He checked the driveway every 5 minutes, watching for Aiden's distinctive rust bucket Honda. At 7:03 it pulled up. Milo ran to the door before Aiden could even knock, flinging it open with enough force to make Marcus wince. "You came back!" Aiden caught him as he launched himself forward, lifting him in a hug. "I told you I would." "I know, but I was still worried." "That's okay. Being worried is normal. But I'm here now." He set Milo down, his eyes finding Verena where she stood in the hallway. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of how much had shifted in 5 days. "Welcome back, Mr. Shaw," she said quietly. "How's Arya?" "Much better. Thank you for asking. And thank you for," he gestured vaguely, encompassing everything, "for taking care of him." "That's my job. I'm his mother." "I know, but it's still good to hear you say it." Milo tugged on Aiden's hand. "Come see the sunflowers. They grew so much. And Mom and I finished chapter 12. 12? That's 3 whole chapters. You guys have been busy." As Milo dragged Aiden toward the back door, chattering nonstop about everything they'd done, Verena found herself following at a distance, watching, but differently now. Not through a screen, not from hiding, but openly, allowing herself to be part of the scene instead of just an observer. In the garden, Milo proudly displayed the sunflowers, which had indeed grown impressively. Aiden crouched down, examining them with appropriate seriousness, praising Milo's caretaking skills. And Verena stood there in the morning sun, watching her son laugh, and realized something that should have been obvious from the start. She'd hired Aiden to care for Milo, but somehow, without meaning to, he'd started caring for both of them, teaching Milo how to express emotions, teaching Verena how to be present, showing them both what it looked like to love imperfectly, but completely. She thought she was watching him through those cameras, evaluating his performance, judging his worthiness, protecting her son from potential harm. But the truth was simpler and more terrifying. She'd been watching because she was learning how to be the mother Milo needed, learning how to connect again, how to feel again, how to live in her own life instead of observing it from a safe distance. And now, standing here in the garden with her son's laughter ringing out, and this stranger who wasn't a stranger anymore teaching her child about growth and patience and care, she understood something else too. She wasn't ready to let Aiden Shaw walk out of their lives when this job eventually ended, which meant she needed to figure out what came next before that ending arrived. The fragile peace lasted exactly 11 days. Verena had fallen into a new rhythm, one that felt both foreign and right. She came home earlier most evenings, joining Milo and Aiden for dinner. She'd reinstalled the camera app, but found herself opening it less and less, choosing instead to simply walk into rooms where her son was, rather than watching from afar. The work emails still flooded in. The board meetings still demanded her attention, but she'd started setting boundaries she'd never enforced before. Milo responded cautiously to her presence, like a wild animal learning that food offered from a hand wouldn't hurt him. He still gravitated toward Aiden naturally, still sought him out first when something went wrong, but he'd started including Verena too. Small things, showing her drawings, asking her opinion on which book to read next, letting her help with the sunflowers that were now tall enough to require stakes for support. It felt like healing, slow, uncertain, but real. Then came the Wednesday that shattered everything. Verena was in a video conference when her phone lit up with a notification. Camera 11. Study. Motion detected. She almost ignored it, but something about the timestamp made her pause. 3:47 in the afternoon. Milo should have been in the playroom or outside with Aiden, not in her study where she kept her late husband's things. She muted her microphone, opened the app with trembling fingers. The study looked like a crime scene. Books pulled from shelves, papers scattered across the floor, and in the center of it all, Milo stood surrounded by shattered clay sculptures. The pieces that Daniel had collected over their 12 years of marriage, folk art from their travels, each one precious and irreplaceable, now reduced to fragments. Milo held another sculpture in his hands, his chest heaving, his face contorted with something beyond simple anger. This was rage mixed with anguish, terror bleeding into destruction. "I hate them," his voice cracked. "I hate everything that reminds me he's gone." He threw the sculpture. It exploded against the fireplace, shards scattering like shrapnel. Verena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a cry. Those sculptures. Daniel had loved those sculptures, had spent hours in this study, arranging and rearranging them, telling her the story behind each one. The bird from Morocco, the dancer from Bali, the turtle from that tiny gallery in Santa Fe. All gone. On screen, Aiden appeared in the doorway. Verena expected him to be angry, to grab Milo, to stop the destruction. Instead, he stepped carefully into the room, his expression calm despite the chaos, and lowered himself to the floor among the broken pieces. "I hate them too sometimes," Aiden said quietly. Milo spun around, another sculpture clutched in his white-knuckled grip. "You don't understand. You don't—" "I do." Aiden's voice was gentle but firm. "I understand hating things that remind you of what you lost, that make you remember what used to be but isn't anymore. Then why doesn't Mom get rid of them? Why does she keep Dad's things everywhere like he's coming back when we both know he's never coming back?" Tears streamed down Milo's face. "He's never coming back, and she won't admit it, and I can't. His words dissolved into sobs. He still held the sculpture, his arm drawn back, ready to throw. Aiden didn't move to stop him. Instead, he picked up one of the already broken pieces and held it out. "Here, break this one too." Milo stared at him, confused. "What?" "If you need to break things to get the feelings out, then break them. But do it on purpose. Not because you're out of control, but because you're choosing to. Here." He gestured to the fragments around him. "These are already broken. They can't hurt anymore. Break them again if you need to." Slowly, Milo lowered the intact sculpture. He took the shard from Aiden's hand and threw it weakly against the wall. It shattered further with a small, unsatisfying crack. "Harder," Aiden said. Milo picked up another piece, threw it with more force. The sound was sharper, more final. Again. Another piece, another throw, another explosion of fragments. "Keep going. Get it all out." Milo broke piece after piece, his throws becoming less about destruction and more about release. The sounds changed from violent to desperate to exhausted, until finally he stood among the rubble, empty-handed, his body shaking. "I miss him," Milo whispered. "I miss him so much it feels like I can't breathe." "I know, buddy. And I'm scared. I'm so scared all the time." Aiden opened his arms. "What are you scared of?" Milo collapsed into him, clutching at his shirt like a lifeline. The words came out in broken fragments, punctuated by sobs that shook his entire frame. "I'm scared Mom will disappear like Dad did. I'm scared she'll be here one day and gone the next, and I won't get to say goodbye. I'm scared she doesn't need me, that her work is more important, that I'm not enough to make her want to stay." The words hit Verena like physical blows. She slid down the wall of her office, the phone clutched in both hands, watching through tears as her son voiced every fear she'd planted in him through her absence. "I'm scared," Milo continued, his voice muffled against Aiden's shoulder, "that everyone I love will leave and I'll be alone forever. And I'm scared that it's my fault, that I'm too broken and too angry and too much trouble, and that's why nobody stays." "Oh, Milo," Aiden held him tighter. "None of that is true. You are not too much. You are not broken. And you are not the reason people leave. Sometimes terrible things happen that have nothing to do with us, no matter how much we wish we could have stopped them. But what if Mom leaves too? She won't. You don't know that. Dad didn't mean to leave, and he did anyway. What if something happens to Mom too? What if I lose her like I lost him?" Aiden pulled back just enough to look Milo in the eyes. "You want to know the truth? The scary truth that nobody likes to say out loud?" Milo nodded, hiccuping. "You're right. I can't promise nothing will happen to your mom. None of us can promise that because life is unpredictable and sometimes terrible things happen to good people. But here's what I can tell you. Your mom loves you. More than her company, more than her work, more than anything. She's been scared too, scared of losing you, scared of not being enough, scared of doing everything wrong. But she's trying. Every day she's trying to be braver for you. How do you know? Because I've seen it. The way she looks at you when she thinks nobody's watching. The way she asks me questions about what you like and what makes you happy. The way she came home early all last week, even though I know she had important meetings. She's learning, Milo, just like you're learning. And maybe that's all any of us can do. Just keep learning and trying and showing up, even when it's scary." Milo was quiet for a long moment, his breathing gradually evening out. Then he looked at the destruction around them, at the broken sculptures that could never be put back together. "Mom's going to be so mad." "Maybe. Or maybe she'll understand." I ruined Dad's things. You didn't ruin them. You expressed feelings that were too big to hold inside anymore. There's a difference. Aiden stood, lifting Milo with him. Come on, let's get you cleaned up, and then we'll figure out how to talk to your mom about this. I don't want to talk to her. She'll hate me. She won't hate you. She could never hate you. Aiden's voice was firm. But we do need to tell her what happened. Not because you're in trouble, but because she needs to understand what you're feeling, okay? Milo nodded reluctantly, and they left the study. Aiden's arm around the boy's shoulders, steady and supporting. Verena sat on her office floor for another 5 minutes, unable to move, unable to process. Her son thought she might disappear, thought her work was more important than him, thought he was too broken to love, and he was destroying his father's memory because nobody had taught him how to hold grief without it destroying him first. She'd failed. As a mother, as a widow, as a human being, she had failed spectacularly. All her money, all her success, all her carefully controlled surveillance. None of it had protected Milo from the pain of losing his father and feeling like he was losing his mother, too. Her assistant knocked on the door. Miss Cole, they're waiting for you to unmute. Cancel the rest of my meetings, Verena said, her voice hollow. All of them. Today, tomorrow, the rest of the week. Cancel everything. But the board presentation, I said, cancel everything. She ended the video call without explanation, grabbed her bag, and left the office. The drive home was a blur of tears and traffic and the echo of Milo's words in her head. I'm scared she doesn't need me, that I'm not enough to make her want to stay. She pulled into the driveway at 4:30, her hands shaking so badly she could barely turn off the ignition. Through the front windows, she could see Marcus in the foyer, speaking with Aiden. No sign of Milo. Verena walked in on unsteady legs. Both men turned toward her, and the expression on Aiden's face told her he knew she'd been watching again. Where is he? Her voice came out rough. In his room, Aiden said quietly. He's calm now. We talked. He knows what happened wasn't okay, but he also knows his feelings are valid. I need to see him. Ms. Cole. Aiden stepped forward, his voice gentle. Maybe give him a few more minutes. He's still processing, and I think you might need a few minutes too. I watched it happen. I saw... Her voice broke. I saw everything he said. About being scared I'll leave. About not being enough. Then you know what needs to happen next. I don't. The admission tore out of her. I don't know how to fix this. How to fix him. How to fix us. You can't fix him. He's not broken. Aiden's eyes held hers. But you can be honest with him. Tell him you're scared too. Tell him you've been hiding because grief is terrifying and you didn't know how to be sad in front of him. Tell him the truth about why you work so much, why you've been absent, why everything fell apart after his father died. He's 6 years old. He's 6 years old and he's been carrying adult-sized fear for 18 months. He can handle honesty better than he can handle uncertainty. Aiden's voice softened. Talk to him. Not as CEO Verena Cole, who has all the answers. As mom, who's just as lost and scared as he is. Verena looked toward the stairs, toward where her son was hiding from her in his own room. Then she looked at the study door, at the destruction waiting behind it. The sculptures. Daniel's sculptures. They're just things, Aiden said gently. They were his favorite things. They were pieces of him I still had. And now Milo needs you more than you need pieces. You have to choose which matters more. The memory of what you lost, or the reality of what you still have. The words settled over her like a weight. She nodded slowly, unable to speak past the lump in her throat, and walked toward the stairs. Milo's door was closed but not locked. Verena knocked softly. Milo? It's Mom. Can I come in? Silence. Then, quietly. Are you mad? No, sweetheart. I'm not mad. Can I please come in? The lock clicked. Verena opened the door to find Milo sitting on his bed, his knees drawn up to his chest, his eyes red and swollen from crying. He looked so small, so young, so terribly fragile. She crossed the room and sat on the edge of his bed, maintaining some distance, not wanting to crowd him. Aiden told me what happened in the study. Milo's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to. I know. And it's okay. It's not okay. I broke Dad's things. I broke everything, and I can't put it back together. And Milo, she reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and took his hand. Can I tell you something? Something I should have told you a long time ago? He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. Verena took a shaky breath. When Daddy died, I broke too. Not on the outside where people could see, but on the inside. And I was so scared of being broken in front of you that I hid. I hid behind work and meetings and this idea that if I could just keep everything else perfect, if I could just control everything else, then maybe the broken parts wouldn't matter. But that wasn't fair to you. Because you were breaking too, and instead of breaking together, I left you to break alone. You were sad, Milo whispered. I was devastated. I still am, every single day. But that's not an excuse for abandoning you. You needed your mother, and I wasn't there. And I am so sorry. I thought you didn't care. I thought work was more important. Nothing is more important than you. Nothing. She squeezed his hand. I got lost in my grief and my fear, and I made you feel like you weren't enough to bring me back. But that was never true, Milo. You are everything. You're my whole world, and I've been failing you, but I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to learn how to be sad and still show up, how to be scared and still be present, how to be your mom again, even though I don't always know how. Milo was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was searching for lies. Are you going to leave like Dad did? I hope not. I'm going to do everything in my power to stay right here with you for as long as possible. But Milo, I need you to understand something. She chose her words carefully, knowing they would either help or hurt. What happened to Daddy was an accident, a terrible, unfair accident that nobody could have predicted or prevented. I can't promise you that accidents will never happen, but I can promise you that I'm not going anywhere on purpose. I'm not choosing to leave you, not through work or anything else. I'm choosing to stay. But what if something bad happens? What if, then we'll deal with it together, you and me. But we can't live our lives being so scared of what might happen that we forget to be alive right now. She pulled him closer, and he came willingly, curling into her side. I don't want to miss any more of your life because I'm too afraid of losing it. Do you understand? I think so. And Milo? About the sculptures. You were right to be angry that I kept them everywhere. I was holding on to Dad so tightly that I forgot you needed to grieve him in your own way. Those things were important to me, but they were making you feel like I cared more about preserving his memory than about your feelings. And that wasn't fair. I shouldn't have broken them. Probably not. But I understand why you did. And we can talk about better ways to express anger next time, okay? Ways that don't involve destroying things. Like what? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together. Maybe talk to Dr. Chen about it. Maybe find some physical way to release those big feelings that doesn't hurt anyone or break things we can't replace. She kissed the top of his head. The important thing is that you tell me when you're feeling that angry or scared instead of holding it in until it explodes. Will you really listen? Yes, I promise I will really listen. They sat together in silence, Milo's breathing gradually calming, his body relaxing against hers. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across his constellation sheets. Mom? His voice was small again. Can Aiden stay with us? Forever? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, can he not be just my nanny? Can he be, like, part of our family? Because I don't want him to leave when I get older and don't need a nanny anymore. Verena's throat tightened. You really care about him, don't you? He's the best. He listens, and he doesn't get mad when I'm mad, and he keeps his promises, and Arya needs her dad, and I thought maybe... Milo looked up at her hopefully. Maybe they could live here with us? So Aiden doesn't have to be away from her anymore? And so I don't have to worry about him leaving? It was the question Verena had been dancing around for weeks, the idea that had been forming in the back of her mind every time she watched Aiden with Milo, every time she saw how naturally he'd integrated into their broken family and made it feel almost whole again. That's a big decision, she said carefully. We'd have to talk to Aiden about it, see what he wants. But Milo, even if Aiden can't live here permanently, that doesn't mean he's going to disappear from your life. We can make sure you stay connected to him, okay? But it's not the same. No, it's not the same. But sometimes we don't get exactly what we want, and we have to find ways to be happy with what we can have. Milo was quiet, processing. Then, can we at least ask him? About maybe helping him get Arya back? Yeah, sweetheart. We can definitely talk to him about that. They went downstairs together, Milo's hand in hers, and found Aiden in the kitchen with Marcus. Both men looked up as they entered, and Aiden's expression shifted to relief when he saw them together, united instead of fractured. Hey, buddy, Aiden said softly. How are you doing? Better. Mom and I talked. Milo squeezed Verena's hand. And I'm sorry about the sculptures, to both of you. I know they were special. They were just things, Verena echoed Aiden's earlier words. And things can be replaced. You can't be. Marcus cleared his throat discreetly. Ms. Cole, I took the liberty of cleaning up the study. The larger pieces I saved, in case you wanted to keep them. The rest I disposed of. And I've contacted the artist in Santa Fe who made several of the pieces. She's still working and may be able to create new ones if you'd like. Thank you, Marcus, but I think... Verena looked at Milo, then at the study door visible from the kitchen. I think it's time to redecorate that room. Make it into something new instead of a shrine to the past. Maybe Milo and I could work on that together? Milo's eyes widened. Really? Really? It's your house too. You should have a say in what it looks like. For the first time since she'd come home, Milo smiled. Small, tentative, but genuine. Can we make it into a library? With shelves for all my books and yours? And a reading corner with cushions? I think that sounds perfect. Aiden watched the exchange with something tender in his expression, and when his eyes met Verena's, she saw approval there. Pride, maybe. Recognition that she was finally showing up the way Milo needed. Later, after Milo had gone to bed, with both Verena and Aiden reading to him, trading off chapters until his eyes drifted closed, Verena found Aiden in the kitchen, cleaning up the dinner dishes. You don't have to do that, she said quietly. That's not part of your job description. I don't mind. Gives me something to do with my hands. He glanced at her. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm wrecked. That thing he said, about being scared I'll disappear? Her voice wavered. I never meant to make him feel that way. I know. But the good news is you can change it. You already are changing it. Because of you. You're the one who taught him how to express his feelings, who taught me how to be present. I just showed him what my own daughter taught me, that the hardest feelings are the ones most worth expressing, and that love doesn't mean never being scared or angry or sad. It means being those things together. Verena leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. Milo asked if you could stay permanently, if you and Arya could move in here so he doesn't have to worry about you leaving. Aiden's hand stilled in the soapy water. He said that? He did, and I know that's not... I'm not asking you to... She fumbled for words. I just wanted you to know how much you mean to him, to us. Verena. He turned to face her fully, drying his hands on a towel. Can I be honest with you about something? Please. I didn't take this job just for the money. Yes, the money is important. I need it to bring Arya home. But I took this job because I saw a kid who was hurting the way my daughter was hurting, and I thought maybe I could help. I didn't expect to care about Milo the way I do. I didn't expect to care about you the way I do. Her breath caught. Aiden, let me finish, please. He set down the towel. You hired me to care for your son, and I do. But somewhere along the way, I started wanting more for both of you, started hoping you'd find your way back to each other. And watching that happen, being part of that healing, it's meant more to me than any salary ever could. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you wanted to extend my contract, find a way for me to stay longer, I would. Not just for the job security, but because I believe in what we're building here. This weird, broken, healing family that we're figuring out together. Verena felt tears prick her eyes again. I can't ask you to sacrifice more time with Arya. She needs her father. Which is why I was thinking... He hesitated. What if there was a way to make this work for everyone? What if you helped me bring Arya here? Not as charity, but as part of the job. I could have a suite in the staff wing, big enough for both of us. I'd still work the same hours, still care for Milo, but Arya would be here too. They could grow up together, like siblings. You'd want that? I'd want that if you'd want that. But Verena, I need you to understand. I'm not asking for handouts. I'm asking for an opportunity to keep doing work I'm good at, work that matters, while also being the father I need to be. If that doesn't align with what you need, I understand. I can find another way. Verena looked at this man who'd walked into her life and turned everything upside down in the best possible way. Who'd shown her son how to feel again, shown her how to be present again, asked for nothing while giving everything. What if I tripled your salary? She said quietly. What if I gave you a 2-bedroom suite in the family wing, not the staff wing? What if I helped you furnish it however Arya would like? What if I made you a permanent part of this household, not as an employee, but as... She stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. As what? Aiden prompted gently. As family, she finished. Whatever that means. Whatever shape that takes. Because Milo's right. We can't lose you. I can't lose you. Not after you've shown us what it looks like to be whole again. Aiden stared at her, something raw and vulnerable in his expression. You mean that? I mean that. I don't know exactly how to make it work, but I know I want to try. For Milo, for Arya, for... She swallowed hard. For me. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications neither was quite ready to voice. Then Aiden smiled, the kind of smile that transformed his whole face, and nodded. Okay, yeah, let's try. Part 4. The Resignation and the Reckoning. The plan should have been simple. They'd sat at the kitchen table that night, sketching out logistics on the back of an envelope like excited conspirators. Aiden would fly out the following weekend to bring Arya back. Marcus would oversee the preparation of the suite in the family wing. 2 bedrooms, a shared bathroom, enough space for a little girl to feel at home. Verena's lawyers would draw up a new contract, something that reflected the permanence they were reaching for. It should have been simple. But 3 days later, everything fell apart. Verena was reviewing the contract revisions when her office door opened without warning. She looked up, prepared to scold whichever assistant had forgotten to knock, and found Aiden standing there instead. He'd never come to her office before, had never crossed that boundary between her work life and the fragile home life they were rebuilding. The expression on his face stopped her breath. "We need to talk," he'd said quietly, and closed the door behind him. She stood automatically, her heart already racing. What happened? Is Milo Milo's fine. He's with Marcus. Aiden crossed to her desk but didn't sit, just stood there with his hands shoved in his pockets, his shoulders tense. I came to give you this. He pulled out a folded piece of paper and set it on her desk. Even before she opened it, Verena knew what it was. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning the neat handwriting that somehow made everything worse. Dear Ms. Cole, this letter serves as my formal resignation from the position of child care provider for your son, Milo Cole, effective 2 weeks from today's date. I want to be clear that this decision has nothing to do with Milo or any dissatisfaction with the position itself. Working with your son has been one of the most meaningful experiences of my life, and I will carry the memory of our time together always. However, I believe it's in Milo's best interest that I step back before his attachment to me becomes something that could hurt him. He deserves stability with his primary caregiver, you, and I'm concerned that my continued presence might hinder rather than help his healing. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She forced herself to keep reading. I've watched you become the mother he needs over these past weeks. You don't need me anymore. And when you realize that, when you're ready to move forward without my help, my leaving will only hurt Milo more if we wait. I'm sorry for the short notice, and I'm sorry for backing out of our arrangement regarding Arya. I thought I could make it work, but I'm not sure it's the right thing for anyone involved. Thank you for trusting me with your son, Aiden Shaw. Verena set the letter down carefully, fighting the urge to crumple it into nothing. When she finally looked up at Aiden, her voice came out sharp and cold, the CEO voice she used when someone was wasting her time. You're quitting? Yes, After everything we talked about? After promising Milo you'd stay? After making plans to bring Arya here and become part of this family? You're just walking away. I'm not walking away. That's exactly what you're doing. She stood, her hands flat on the desk to keep them from shaking. You're running, just like everyone else who's gotten close to Milo and decided he was too much work. Just like every nanny who quit after 2 weeks because it was easier than trying. Aiden's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You spent 2 months teaching my son how to trust again, how to open up, how to believe that people won't abandon him. And now you're proving him right. Everyone leaves, even you. That's not why I'm leaving. Then explain it to me. She crossed her arms, her throat burning with unshed tears. Explain how this isn't exactly what Milo was terrified of. Explain how you're not doing exactly what you promised you wouldn't do. Aiden ran both hands through his hair, his composure cracking. Because he's too attached. Can't you see that? He's not just attached to me as a caregiver. He's starting to see me as a replacement for his father. And that's not healthy. That's not fair to Daniel's memory. And it's not fair to you. Daniel is dead. The words came out harsh, brutal. And Milo needs people who will show up for him. People who won't disappear the moment things get complicated. I'm trying to prevent him from getting hurt worse later. By hurting him now instead? That's your solution? You're ready to be his mother again. Aiden's voice rose for the first time since she'd known him. You don't need me hovering around, teaching you how to parent your own child. You figured it out. You're showing up, you're being present, you're doing everything right. So what's my role now? To stick around until you realize you don't need the training wheels anymore. To become so integral to Milo's life that when I eventually have to leave, it destroys him? Who said you'd have to leave? Everyone leaves eventually. Jobs end. People move on. And the longer I stay, the harder it will be when what? Verena demanded. When life happens? When circumstances change? Aiden, that's just life. We can't protect Milo from every possible hurt by preventing him from getting attached to people. That's not protection. That's isolation. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a man who's terrified of commitment, who'd rather quit than risk being part of something real. The accusation hung in the air between them. Aiden's expression shifted, hurt flashing across his face before he locked it down. You think this is about me being scared? I think this is about you doing to Arya what I did to Milo, keeping yourself at a distance because it feels safer than risking more loss. Verena's voice softened despite her anger. You told me I was hiding behind work, but you're hiding behind sacrifice. Convincing yourself that leaving is noble when really it's just easier than staying and seeing what we could build together. That's not... Aiden stopped, closing his eyes. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. My wife left because I wasn't enough, because I couldn't provide the life she wanted, couldn't be the man she needed. She chose her own freedom over our daughter, and I've spent 3 years trying to become someone who deserves Arya, someone who won't fail her the way I failed her mother. You didn't fail anyone. I did, and I see that same pattern starting here. Milo getting attached to me because his real parent isn't available. Me stepping into a role that isn't mine to fill. And eventually, you're going to realize that you don't need me. That you're better off without the complication of having your employee's kid living in your house, without the weird dynamic of me being somewhere between staff and family. And when that happens, when you're ready to move forward, I can't... His voice broke. I can't go through being left again. I can't watch another person I care about decide I'm not worth keeping. The admission stripped away Verena's anger, leaving only aching understanding. She walked around her desk slowly, stopping a few feet from him. Is that what you think? That I'd eventually decide you weren't worth keeping? People always do. I'm not people, and this isn't your marriage. She chose her next words carefully, knowing they could either heal or hurt. Aiden, you saved my son. You saved me. You walked into our disaster of a life and showed us what it looked like to be whole again. And I'm not going to wake up one day and decide that's not valuable. I'm not going to decide you're disposable. You can't know that. You're right. I can't promise that life won't change, that circumstances won't evolve, that everything will stay exactly as it is right now. But I can promise that I want you here. Not as an employee, not as a convenience, but as someone who matters. Someone who belongs. Aiden shook his head, his jaw working. Milo deserves better than someone who's just trying to fill the hole his father left. Milo deserves people who love him. And you love him. I've watched you with him every single day for 2 months. That's not duty or professional obligation. That's genuine care. And yes, he's attached to you, but that's not unhealthy. That's what healing looks like. He's learning to trust again, to open his heart again, to believe that good people exist who won't hurt him. Until I have to leave and prove him wrong. Why do you have to leave? Verena moved closer, close enough to see the pain etched in every line of his face. I offered you a permanent position, a home for you and Arya, a place in our family. The only person insisting you have to leave is you. Because I don't belong here. Look at this place. He gestured broadly at her office, at the expensive furniture and the Manhattan skyline beyond the windows. Look at your life. You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a guy who drives a car held together with duct tape and hope. Our worlds don't overlap. They collided temporarily because you needed help and I needed money, but that doesn't make us family. Money doesn't make family. Love makes family. Showing up makes family. And you've been doing that every single day. She paused, her throat tight. But I can't force you to stay if you're determined to leave. I can't make you believe you're worth keeping if you've already decided you're not. So if this is really what you want, if you really think leaving is what's best, then I won't fight you. She picked up the resignation letter, held it between them like evidence. But before you walk out that door, I need you to understand something. This will hurt Milo. Not eventually, not hypothetically, immediately and deeply. He will see this as abandonment, as proof that he's too broken to love, too difficult to keep. And no amount of explanation or gentle transition will change that, because kids his age think in absolutes. You're either here or you're not. You either keep your promises or you don't. Aiden's hands clenched into fists at his sides. I know. Do you? Because you're so busy trying to protect him from hypothetical future pain that you're about to cause him very real present pain. You're doing exactly what you're afraid of. You're leaving him. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing is staying. The right thing is fighting for this, even when it's scary. The right thing is believing that you deserve to be part of something good instead of running the moment it gets real. She took a breath, steadying herself. But you have to choose that, Aiden. I can't choose it for you. She held out the letter. He stared at it like it might catch fire, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. I need to think, he said finally, his voice rough. Then think. But think about what Milo actually needs, not what your fear is telling you he needs. Think about Arya and what kind of life you actually want to build for her. Think about whether you're protecting anyone or just protecting yourself. He took the letter back, folding it carefully, and put it in his pocket. Then he turned and walked out of her office without another word. Verena sank back into her chair the moment the door closed, pressing her palms against her eyes. She'd handled that badly. Too harsh, too aggressive, too much CEO and not enough human. But God, watching him prepare to walk away, watching him sabotage the best thing that had happened to any of them, it had made her angry in a way she hadn't felt in years. Angry at him for being scared. Angry at herself for not seeing it sooner. Angry at his ex-wife for breaking him so thoroughly that he couldn't recognize love when it was offered freely. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Ms. Cole, Mr. Shaw just left the building. He looked quite upset. Milo saw him go and is asking questions. Verena's heart sank. What did you tell him? That Mr. Shaw had an errand to run and would be back soon. But I'm not certain that was the truth. It wasn't. He quit, Marcus. He resigned. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Then, what would you like me to do? Nothing yet. Let me handle Milo. Just make sure he's okay until I get home. Of course. The drive back to the mansion felt endless. Verena's mind churned through everything Aiden had said, everything she'd said back, trying to find the moment where it all went wrong. Maybe she'd pushed too hard, offered too much too fast. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was trying to replace Daniel with someone safer, Someone who wouldn't leave through death because she could control the relationship through employment. Or maybe Aiden was running from the first real connection he'd had since his marriage fell apart, and she'd just watched him go instead of fighting harder. She found Milo in the playroom, building a structure that looked like a fortress. Tall walls, one entrance, everything designed to keep threats out. He didn't look up when she entered. "Hey, sweetheart." She sat on the floor near him, not too close. "Can we talk?" "Where's Aiden?" "He had to leave early today. He needed some time to think about things." "What things?" Verena chose honesty the way Aiden would have. Some grown-up things that are confusing. Things about jobs and families and where people belong. Milo's hands stilled on the blocks. "Is he coming back?" "I don't know." The admission hung between them. Milo's face crumpled and Verena braced for the rage, the destruction, the tears. Instead, he just looked at her with eyes too old for his face and asked the question that broke her heart. "Did I do something wrong?" "Oh, Milo, no." She moved closer, pulling him onto her lap despite his initial resistance. "You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about you." Then why would he leave? Because sometimes people get scared. Even grown-ups. Even people who care about us a lot. They get scared of getting hurt, so they hurt themselves first by leaving before anyone can leave them. "That's stupid." "Yeah," Verena agreed, her voice thick. "It really is." Milo was quiet for a moment, his small body tense against hers. Then, "Is he scared of me?" "No, baby. He's scared of losing you. There's a difference." "But if he leaves, he loses me anyway." The logic was irrefutable. Verena held him tighter, wishing she had better answers, wishing she could fix this the way she fixed corporate problems, with money or strategy or sheer force of will. But this required something she was only just learning how to offer: vulnerability and presence and the courage to wait. "What do we do?" Milo asked. "We give him time to figure out what he really wants, and we hope that he realizes running away doesn't protect anyone. It just makes everyone lonely." That night, Milo insisted on sleeping in Verena's room. She made space for him in her king-sized bed, and they lay in the darkness together, neither sleeping, both thinking about the man who'd taught them how to be a family and was now threatening to unmake everything they'd built. "Mom?" Milo's voice was small in the darkness. "Yeah, sweetheart?" "If Aiden doesn't come back, will you leave too?" The question drove a knife through her chest. She rolled onto her side, pulling him close so he could hear her heartbeat. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, Milo, I'm staying right here." "But you can't promise nothing bad will happen." "No, I can't promise that. But I can promise that I will be here, choosing you, every single day, even when it's hard, even when I'm scared, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. I'm not leaving you." Milo nodded against her chest, and eventually his breathing evened out into sleep. But Verena lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation she'd had with Aiden, searching for the words that would have made him stay. 2 days passed with no word. Aiden didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at the mansion. Marcus fielded questions from Milo with gentle deflections, but even he was starting to look worried. Verena threw herself into work as a distraction, taking meetings she normally would have delegated, reviewing contracts that didn't need her attention. But every few hours she'd check her phone, hoping for a message that never came. On the third day, her assistant knocked on her office door. "Miss Cole? There's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." Her heart leaped. "Send him in." But it wasn't Aiden who walked through her door. It was an older man, probably in his late 60s, with kind eyes and Aiden's same cheekbones. "Miss Cole?" He extended a hand. "I'm Thomas Shaw, Aiden's father. I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced." Verena shook his hand, confused. "Of course not. Please, sit. Is everything all right? Is Aiden?" "Aiden's fine, physically." Thomas settled into the chair across from her desk. "But he's been staying with me the past few days, and I can see he's tearing himself apart over whatever happened between you two. He told you about the resignation. He told me he quit a job he loved because he was scared of screwing it up. Which, if you know my son at all, is exactly what he does. He'd rather destroy something good on his own terms than wait for it to fall apart naturally." Thomas leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I came here because I needed to know something. Did you mean it? Mean what? The offer to make him part of your family, to bring Arya into your home, to give him a place that wasn't temporary. Thomas's eyes were sharp despite their kindness. Or was that something you said in the moment because it seemed like the right thing to say? Verena met his gaze steadily. I meant every word. Even though he's not Milo's father, even though he's just some guy you hired 2 months ago. He's not just some guy. He's the person who saved my son when I couldn't, who taught me how to be present again, who became family, not because of blood or obligation, but because he showed up every single day and chose to care. Her voice cracked slightly. So yes, I meant it, all of it. Thomas nodded slowly, something like approval in his expression. Aiden's first wife, Arya's mother. She left because she wanted a bigger life than what he could provide. She wanted wealth and excitement and freedom from responsibility. And when she walked away from their daughter without looking back, it broke something in him, made him believe he wasn't enough, that no one would ever choose to stay with him. I'm not his ex-wife. I know. But he doesn't know that yet. Not really. Not deep down where it matters. Thomas stood, pulling something from his pocket. He doesn't know I'm here. Doesn't know I came to see if you were real or just another dream he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve. He held out a folded piece of paper, the same resignation letter Aiden had given her 3 days ago. But this version was torn. Not neatly, but violently, ripped into quarters and then taped back together with shaking hands. I found this in his trash can last night, Thomas said quietly. He tore it up. Then he taped it back together. Then he tore it up again. He's been doing that for 3 days, trying to decide if he made the right choice or the worst mistake of his life. Verena took the letter carefully, feeling the weight of all that indecision. What does he want me to do? He wants you to fight for him, but he's too scared to ask, too convinced he's not worth fighting for. So he's waiting to see if you'll give up or keep trying. Thomas moved toward the door, then paused. My son is one of the best men I know. He'd give his last dollar to someone in need, sacrifice his own happiness for people he loves. But he's terrible at believing people could love him the same way. Show him he's wrong. Don't let him run. After Thomas left, Verena sat with the taped-together letter for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and made a call she should have made days ago. That evening, she drove to the address Thomas had quietly provided. A small house in a suburb 40 minutes from the city, with a neat lawn and a rusted basketball hoop in the driveway. Aiden's Honda sat in front of the garage, and through the living room window, she could see him sitting on the couch, Arya curled against his side. Verena sat in her car for 5 minutes, gathering courage. Then she walked up the path and knocked. Aiden answered the door, his eyes widening in shock. Verena, what are you... You tore up your resignation letter. He glanced back into the house, then stepped outside, closing the door behind him. My dad told you. He came to see me, to make sure I wasn't going to hurt you the way your ex-wife did. He had no right. He had every right. He's your father. He loves you. And he's watching you sabotage the best thing that's happened to you in years because you're too scared to believe it's real. She held up the taped-together letter. Is this what you want? To walk away from Milo and me and everything we could build together? I don't know what I want. Yes, you do. You want to stay. You want to bring Arya home. You want to be part of our family. But you're terrified that if you let yourself have those things, we'll eventually take them away. Aiden's shoulders sagged. He sat on the front step, and after a moment, Verena sat beside him. My ex-wife told me I was too small, he said quietly. Too ordinary, too content with simple things. She said I'd never be enough for anyone who wanted more from life. And then she left Arya, our 4-year-old daughter, and never looked back. How am I supposed to believe that someone like you, someone who has everything, would choose to keep someone like me? Because I'm not choosing your bank account or your career potential or whatever other measuring stick your ex-wife used. I'm choosing you, the man who kneels on the floor to talk to my son, who plants sunflowers and reads stories and doesn't give up when things get hard. That's enough. That's more than enough. What happens when it's not? When you realize you could have anyone and you settled for Aiden? She turned to face him fully. I don't want anyone. I want you. And I need you to decide if you're brave enough to believe that. He looked at her for a long moment, vulnerability and hope warring in his expression. Then, slowly, he pulled the taped-together letter from his pocket. Apparently he'd been carrying it around, and tore it in half, and then in half again. The pieces fluttered to the ground between them like snow. I'm terrified, he admitted, terrified. Me too. I don't know how to do this, how to be part of something without waiting for it to end. Then we'll figure it out together. That's what family does. The door behind them opened. Arya peeked out, her dark curls sleep-mussed, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Daddy? Who's that? Aiden's expression softened immediately. Arya, baby, this is Ms. Cole. Remember I told you about Milo? The boy with the sunflowers? That's right. Miss Cole is his mom. Arya studied Verena with solemn eyes. Are you nice? I try to be, Verena said gently. Your dad talks about you all the time. He says you're very brave. I am brave. Daddy says so. Arya looked between them. Are you making Daddy sad? Grandpa said someone made him sad. No, sweetheart. I'm trying to make him happy. But sometimes grown-ups make things more complicated than they need to be. Arya considered this. Then she walked over and took Verena's hand. You should come inside. It's cold, and we have cookies. Verena looked at Aiden, who nodded slowly. She let this tiny, brave girl lead her into the house where Aiden had been hiding from Hope, and she thought maybe this was what healing looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect words, but small moments of choosing connection over fear. They sat in Thomas's living room, eating store-brand cookies while Arya chatted about her preschool and her friends, and the flowers she wanted to plant when she lived with Daddy again. Aiden was quiet, watching Verena interact with his daughter with an expression that was equal parts wonder and terror. When Arya finally fell asleep against Aiden's side, Thomas appeared from wherever he'd been tactfully hiding. I'll put her to bed. You two talk. After he carried Arya down the hall, Verena turned to Aiden. She's wonderful. She's everything. His voice was thick with emotion. And I've been trying so hard to build a life she deserves that I almost walked away from the best opportunity I've ever had. So don't walk away. Come home. Bring her home. Let us be your family. Just like that? Just like that. Verena reached across the space between them and took his hand. I know you're scared. I know you've been hurt. But Aiden, so have I. So has Milo. And we're all choosing to try again anyway. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but doing it scared. He squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. If I do this, if I bring Arya into your home and we try to make this work, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if it doesn't work out, if 6 months from now or a year from now we realize this was a mistake, you'll tell me honestly. Don't let me get comfortable just to pull the rug out later. I can handle rejection. I can't handle false hope. Aiden, this isn't false hope. This is real. And yes, I promise. If somehow this becomes unhealthy or wrong, we'll talk about it honestly. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to figure this out, together, and build something better than any of us could have built alone. He pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. Milo's going to be so mad at me for disappearing. Milo's going to be thrilled you're coming back, and he's going to love meeting Arya. What if they don't get along? They will. But even if they don't immediately, they'll learn. That's what siblings do. The word hung between them, siblings, implying a permanence they hadn't quite articulated yet. Aiden pulled back to look at her, something shifting in his expression. You really see this working, all of us under one roof, trying to be a family? I really do. And I think you do too. Or you wouldn't have taped that letter back together 50 times. He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. You're right, I'm an idiot. You're scared. There's a difference. I'm both. Then be both. But be both while staying, not while running away. He nodded slowly, and she could see him making the decision, choosing courage over comfort. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's try. She pulled him into a hug, feeling his arms come around her, and thought about how strange and unexpected this all was. Two broken people and two hurting children trying to build something whole from their collective pieces. It shouldn't work. By any reasonable measure, it was too fast, too complicated, too many variables. But sometimes the best things didn't make sense on paper. Sometimes they just made sense in the heart. They drove back to the mansion together the next morning, Aiden following Verina's car in his rattling Honda with Arya strapped into her booster seat in the back, clutching her stuffed rabbit and asking questions about everything. Thomas had helped pack 2 suitcases the night before, enough clothes and toys to last until they could retrieve the rest of Arya's things, and had hugged his son at the door with tears in his eyes and instructions to stop being so afraid of happiness. Verina had barely slept, her mind churning through logistics and possibilities and the sheer enormity of what they were about to do. She'd called Marcus at 11 p.m. to warn him they'd have a new permanent resident by morning, and to his credit, he'd simply asked what Arya's favorite breakfast food was and whether she had any allergies. By the time they pulled into the circular driveway at 8:15, the suite in the family wing was ready. The kitchen was stocked with child-friendly foods, and Marcus had even found a small step stool for the bathroom sink. Milo was waiting on the front steps, having stationed himself there since dawn, according to Marcus. The moment Verina's car stopped, he was running toward it, his face a mixture of hope and fear that broke her heart. "Mom, is Aiden?" He stopped short when he saw the Honda pulling in behind them, his eyes going wide. "He came back." "He came back," Verina confirmed, crouching down to his level. "And he brought someone very special with him." Aiden emerged from the Honda, moving to open the back door. Arya climbed out carefully, her rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes huge as she took in the mansion. She was smaller than Verina had expected from the FaceTime calls, delicate-looking with Aiden's dark curls and a dusting of freckles across her nose. Milo approached slowly, suddenly shy. "Hi, I'm Milo." "I know, you're the sunflower boy." Arya's voice was soft but clear. "I'm Arya. This is Mr. Hopscotch." She held up the rabbit. "He's very brave, so I don't have to be scared all the time." "That's smart. Do you want to see the actual sunflowers? They're in the back garden. They're almost as tall as me now." Arya looked up at Aiden, who nodded encouragingly. She took a tentative step toward Milo, then another, and then suddenly they were walking toward the house together, Milo chattering about the garden and the playroom and all the things they could build, while Arya listened with solemn attention. Verina and Aiden stood by the cars, watching them disappear through the front door. "That went better than I expected," Aiden said quietly. "Kids are resilient. They want connection. They just need permission to reach for it." "Is that what we're doing? Reaching for connection?" She turned to look at him, this man who'd become essential without her quite noticing when it happened. "I think we already found it. Now we're just figuring out what to do with it." Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral in the way that meant he was deeply pleased. "Mr. Shaw, welcome back. I've prepared the suite in the East Wing. 2 bedrooms as requested, and I took the liberty of adding some books to the smaller room that I thought Arya might enjoy. If the selection isn't appropriate, I can certainly— I'm sure it's perfect, Marcus, thank you." Aiden grabbed the suitcases from his trunk. "Should I— 2nd floor, east corridor, last door on the right. The children are already in the garden if you'd like to join them after you've settled in." They found Milo and Arya kneeling by the sunflower patch, Milo explaining in great detail about soil and water and how you had to be patient because plants grew slowly, but it was worth the wait. Arya listened with the kind of attention that suggested she was memorizing every word. "And this one," Milo pointed to the tallest sunflower, "this one's mine. I planted it first, but you can have your own if you want. We have extra seeds." "Can I really?" Arya's face lit up. "Daddy, can I plant a flower?" Aiden smiled, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. "Of course you can, baby. Milo's the expert. He'll teach you." They spent the morning in the garden, the 4 of them, planting 3 new sunflower seeds that Arya patted into place with intense concentration. Milo showed her how to water them without drowning them, how to measure their growth, how to talk to them so they'd grow strong. And Arya, who'd spent the past year in her grandfather's small apartment with no yard and no garden, absorbed every word like she'd been waiting her whole life for exactly this knowledge. Verina watched from a few feet away, her heart expanding with something she couldn't quite name. This was what she'd lost after Daniel died. This sense of wholeness, of family, of ordinary moments that mattered more than any business deal or board meeting. She'd thought it was gone forever, buried with her husband, but here it was, taking a different shape, built from broken pieces that somehow fit together better than the original ever had. "Mom, look!" Milo called. "Arya planted her seeds perfect on the first try. She's a natural." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Verena moved closer, kneeling beside Arya. "What are you going to name your sunflower?" Arya considered this seriously. "Hope? Because Daddy says hope is what makes flowers grow even when it's dark." The simplicity of it, the unconscious wisdom, made Verena's throat tight. "That's a beautiful name." They went inside for lunch, the children chattering nonstop now that the initial shyness had worn off. Marcus had prepared grilled cheese sandwiches and fruit, and they ate in the kitchen rather than the formal dining room, the space feeling more like a home than it had in months. Afterward, Milo dragged Arya to the playroom to show her his block collection. Verena and Aiden followed at a distance, watching through the doorway as the children immediately began building something together, their heads bent close, already developing that unconscious synchronicity that suggested they'd be friends. "I can't believe this is real," Aiden said quietly. "Yesterday I was convinced I'd ruined everything. Today I'm standing in your home watching my daughter play with your son like they've known each other forever. Life changes fast. We just have to be brave enough to let it." He looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "I'm still scared." "Good. That means it matters." She took his hand, threading their fingers together. "Aiden, I need to tell you something. Something I should have said before." "What?" "I deleted the cameras. The ones I used to watch you and Milo. I haven't looked at a single feed in 3 weeks." He absorbed this, understanding the significance. "You stopped surveilling and started trusting. I stopped hiding and started participating, because you taught me that watching life through a screen isn't the same as living it." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for that, for teaching me how to be present again. You taught yourself. I just showed up." "You did more than show up. You saved us. I think maybe we saved each other." They stood there watching the children build towers and knock them down, laughing at the destruction and immediately starting over. And Verena thought about the cameras she'd relied on for so long. How she'd installed them after Daniel's death, desperate to control something, anything, in a world that had proven itself terrifyingly unpredictable. How she'd watched Milo spiral through those lenses, observed his pain without feeling it, kept herself at a safe distance from emotions that might drown her. And how Aiden had walked into that surveillance state and unknowingly shown her what she was missing, not through judgment or criticism, but simply through being present in ways she'd forgotten how to be. Through kneeling on floors and planting gardens and holding space for feelings too big for words. The afternoon dissolved into evening. They made dinner together, all 4 of them in the kitchen, chaos and laughter and spilled ingredients that would have horrified Verena 3 months ago, but now just felt like life. Arya insisted on helping with everything, her small hands stirring pasta sauce and setting the table with mismatched precision. Milo hovered protectively, catching her when she nearly dropped a plate, teaching her which forks went where. After dinner, they migrated to the library, the one that used to be Daniel's study, the room where Milo had shattered all those sculptures. But the destruction had been cleared away weeks ago, and in its place, they'd created something new. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that Milo had helped organize, a reading corner with cushions and soft lighting, a space that honored the past without being imprisoned by it. Aiden settled into the reading chair with both children curled on either side of him and began reading aloud from a book about dragons and friendship. His voice was steady and warm, changing pitch for different characters, making both children giggle at his dramatic renditions. Verena sat across from them, pretending to read her own book, but mostly just watching, memorizing this moment because she knew it was important. Knew it was the kind of moment that would define the architecture of their new family. Halfway through the 3rd chapter, Arya's eyes started to droop. She fought it valiantly, jerking awake every time her head nodded forward, but eventually she lost the battle and slumped against Aiden's side, fast asleep. "Should I take her up to bed?" Aiden whispered. "Finish the chapter first," Milo said. "I want to know what happens." So Aiden kept reading, his voice dropping to just above a whisper, while Arya slept and Milo listened with rapt attention, and Verena felt something settle in her chest that had been unsettled for far too long. When the chapter ended, Aiden carried Arya upstairs to their new suite. Milo followed, wanting to see her room, and Verena trailed behind, watching as Aiden tucked his daughter into the bed that Marcus had made up with soft blue sheets. Arya stirred slightly, reaching for her rabbit, and Aiden placed it gently in her arms before kissing her forehead. "Love you, baby girl," he murmured. "Love you, Daddy," she mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. They stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed, and found Milo watching with an expression Verena couldn't quite read. "What is it, sweetheart?" she asked. "Nothing. He looked at Aiden. "I'm glad you came back. I thought you were gone forever." "I know, and I'm sorry I scared you. That wasn't fair." Aiden crouched down to Milo's level. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home now. You and your mom and Arya, you're my family. And family doesn't leave just because things get hard or scary." "You promise?" "I promise." Milo studied him for a long moment, then threw his arms around Aiden's neck in a fierce hug. "Okay, I believe you." Verena's vision blurred with tears as she watched them, this man and her son, healing each other in ways neither of them quite understood yet. When they finally pulled apart, Milo turned to her with a shy smile. "Can Aiden read me a story too? In my room?" "Of course he can. Go pick out a book." Milo ran off down the hall, and Aiden stood meeting Verena's eyes. "This is really happening, isn't it? We're really doing this. We're really doing this. I don't know how to be part of a family like this. With my ex-wife, it was always conditional, always dependent on what I could provide or achieve. This feels different, like I could fail every expectation, and you'd still want me here." "That's because love isn't about meeting expectations. It's about showing up imperfectly and being accepted anyway." She stepped closer, reaching up to cup his face. "You belong here, Aiden, not because of what you do for Milo or how well you perform your duties. You belong here because you're you, and we want you." He kissed her then, soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. She answered by kissing him back, her hands sliding into his hair, feeling 3 months of tension and fear and hope condensing into this single moment of connection. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Aiden rested his forehead against hers. "I'm still terrified." "Me too, but let's be terrified together." "Deal," Milo's voice called from his bedroom, impatient and excited. "Aiden, I picked 3 books, come on!" Aiden laughed, the sound lighter than Verena had ever heard it. "Duty calls." "Go, I'll be here when you're done." She went to her own room, changed into comfortable clothes, and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, she'd been terrified she'd lost Aiden forever, that his fear would override everything they'd built. Today, he was reading bedtime stories to her son, while his daughter slept down the hall, and they were building something that looked like family. It was fast. Objectively, it was too fast, going from employer and employee to something like co-parents in less than 3 months. Her board of directors would have called it reckless. Her late husband's family would probably call it disrespectful to Daniel's memory. But Verena had spent 18 months being careful and controlled and properly grieving, and it had nearly destroyed her and her son both. Sometimes the right thing looked reckless to people on the outside. Sometimes healing didn't follow a socially acceptable timeline. A soft knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. Aiden stood in the hallway, looking hesitant. Milo's asleep. All 3 books, 2 glasses of water, and a 15-minute discussion about whether dragons could be friends with sharks later. She smiled. "Sounds exhausting." "Sounds perfect." He leaned against the doorframe. "I should let you sleep. Tomorrow's going to be busy. We need to go back to my dad's and get the rest of Arya's things. And I should probably formally notify my landlord that I'm breaking my lease and—" "Aiden." "Yeah?" "Stop planning. Just for tonight. Stop thinking about logistics and tomorrow and everything that needs to happen. Just be here. Right now. With me." He stepped into her room, closing the door softly behind him. They sat on the edge of her bed, not touching, just existing in the same space. The silence stretched comfortable and warm between them. "Can I ask you something?" Verena said finally. "Anything."
Iggy.
What changed between when you gave me the resignation letter and when you tore it up? What made you decide to stay? Aiden was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Arya. She asked me why I looked so sad and I didn't have a good answer. I tried to explain that sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices, but she just looked at me with those big eyes and said, "Is the hard choice making you happy?" And I realized it wasn't. Walking away wasn't protecting anyone. It was just making all of us lonely and scared. Smart kid. The smartest. She gets it from her mother. He paused. Not her birth mother, but the mother she's going to have here. You. The words hit Verena like a physical force. Aiden, I can't replace... I'm not asking you to replace anyone. I'm asking if you're willing to help me raise her. To be a mother figure in her life the way I'm trying to be a father figure in Milo's. Not replacing Daniel, just adding to the family in a way that makes all of us more whole. Verena's hands shook slightly. I barely know how to mother my own child. How am I supposed to help raise yours? The same way I learned, by showing up and trying and failing and trying again, by loving imperfectly but consistently. He took her hand. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to be willing to figure them out together. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it. That's what families do. They mess up and they fix it and they keep going. She leaned against his shoulder, letting herself take comfort in his solid presence. This is insane. You know that, right? A billionaire CEO and a single dad and 2 traumatized kids trying to build a family from scratch. This shouldn't work. Maybe it shouldn't, but it is. He kissed the top of her head. And I'm choosing to believe that sometimes the best things are the ones that don't make sense on paper. They talked for hours, curled up on her bed, mapping out possibilities and potential problems and everything in between. They discussed logistics, officially changing Aiden's employment status from nanny to something more like family manager, setting up college funds for both children, figuring out custody arrangements with Arya's grandfather who would want to remain involved. They discussed emotions, how to help both kids process their respective traumas, when to push and when to give space, how to build trust that would last. And somewhere in those conversations, between practical planning and vulnerable admissions, something shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it became manageable, shared. A weight they could carry together instead of crushing them separately. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm that felt both chaotic and right. Arya adjusted to the mansion with surprising ease, her natural resilience shining through as she explored every room, made friends with Marcus, and declared the garden her favorite place in the whole world. She and Milo became inseparable, building elaborate structures, creating elaborate games, occasionally fighting the way siblings do, but always making up before bedtime. Verena restructured her work schedule, setting hard boundaries about evenings and weekends. Her board grumbled about her reduced availability, but her performance hadn't suffered. If anything, she was sharper and more focused during the hours she did work, no longer drowning in grief-fueled workaholic tendencies. She made it home for dinner most nights, helped with homework, read bedtime stories, showed up for soccer practice and dance recitals, and all the mundane, beautiful moments that comprised family life. Aiden officially became family manager, a deliberately vague title that encompassed everything from childcare to household oversight to being Verena's partner in all the ways that mattered. They hired an additional staff member to handle cleaning and cooking during the day, freeing Aiden to focus on the children and the increasingly complex logistics of managing a household with 2 working adults and 2 active kids. Marcus, witnessing the transformation, pulled Verena aside one evening with tears in his eyes. I've worked for your family for 20 years, he said quietly, and I've never seen this house feel like a home until now. 3 months after Arya arrived, Verena did something she'd been avoiding since Daniel's death. She packed up his clothes, his personal effects, everything that had been preserved like a museum exhibit. Not to erase him, his photos still lined the hallways, his favorite books remained on the library shelves, but to make space for life to continue. She donated his clothes to charity, gave his watches to be held in trust for Milo when he was older, released the grip she'd had on physical objects, as if holding them tightly enough could bring him back. Aiden found her in their bedroom. It was their bedroom now, though that transition had happened gradually, night by night, until it felt natural for him to sleep beside her instead of down the hall. She was folding Daniel's favorite sweater, the one she'd been unable to part with, tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to do this all at once," Aiden said gently, sitting beside her. "Yes, I do. Because if I don't do it now, I never will, and I need to let him go. Not forget him, but stop living in the past. He'd be proud of you, of how far you've come, of the mother you've become again." "You think so?" "I know so. Because any man who loved you and Milo the way Daniel did would want you both to be happy, even if that happiness looks different than what he imagined." She folded the sweater one last time, placed it in the donation box, and let herself cry. Aiden held her through it, offering no platitudes, just presence. When the tears finally subsided, she felt lighter. Still sad, still grieving, but no longer drowning in it. 6 months after Aiden and Arya moved in, Milo's therapist called to schedule what she termed a celebration appointment. "I wanted to see Milo in person to mark his progress," Dr. Chen explained. "He's come so far from the boy who couldn't express feelings without destroying things. I think it would be valuable for him to recognize that growth." During the appointment, which Verena attended at Dr. Chen's invitation, Milo sat on the familiar couch in the familiar office and talked about his life with a confidence that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "I still miss my dad," he said when Dr. Chen asked how he was feeling. "I think about him a lot, but it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. It's more like he's part of me, but he's not the only part. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Dr. Chen said. "What changed?" Milo thought about it seriously. "I have more people now. I have Mom, and she's actually around now. And I have Aiden, who teaches me stuff and listens when I'm upset. And I have Arya, who's like a sister. And I think when you have more people, the missing someone hurt gets smaller because you're not so lonely anymore." After the session, Dr. Chen pulled Verena aside. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That child has healed more in 6 months than I thought possible. You should be very proud." Verena was proud. But more than that, she was grateful. Grateful for Aiden's intervention, for Milo's resilience, for the strange series of circumstances that had brought them all together. One Saturday afternoon in early autumn, they all went to the garden to check on the sunflowers. The original ones that Milo had planted had grown tall and strong, their faces turned toward the sun, their seeds beginning to form. Arya's flower, Hope, had grown fastest, already towering over the others despite being planted months later. "Look how big they are," Arya marveled. "We grew these from tiny seeds." "That's how growth works," Aiden said, pulling her close. "Slow and patient, but worth the wait." Milo knelt by his original flower, running his hand along the stalk. "This one's special. This is the first one I planted with you, Aiden, before Arya came, before everything got better." "Should we save the seeds?" Verena asked. "Plant them again next year?" "Yeah, and we can plant even more. Make the whole garden full of sunflowers." Milo looked up at all of them, his mother, Aiden, Arya, and smiled that unguarded smile that still made Verena's heart ache with joy. "This can be our family tradition. Every year we plant more sunflowers and watch them grow." That evening, after the children were in bed, Verena and Aiden sat in the library with glasses of wine, comfortable in the silence that had become their default. "I've been thinking about something," Aiden said eventually. "What's that?" "We should make this official, not just employment and cohabitation, but actual family. I want to adopt Milo, and I want you to adopt Arya. Make us legally what we already are in practice." Verena's breath caught. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. These kids, they've already bonded as siblings. We've already bonded as partners, as co-parents. Why not make it permanent? Give all of us the security of knowing this isn't temporary. This isn't dependent on employment contracts or living arrangements. This is forever." "Aiden, that's huge. That's marriage-level commitment without the marriage." "Then maybe we should talk about that too." He set down his wine glass, turning to face her fully. "I love you, Verena. I've been in love with you for months, probably since that night you came home early and we made cookies with Milo and I saw you choosing to be present. I didn't say anything because it felt too fast, too complicated. But loving you isn't complicated. It's the simplest thing I've ever done. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too. I think I started falling for you when I watched you through those cameras, seeing how patient you were with Milo, how you never gave up on him. And then when I stopped watching and started participating, I fell even harder. Because you didn't just save my son. You saved me. So what do you say? Should we make this official? Get married? Adopt each other's kids? Become the weird blended family we've already been pretending to be? She laughed through her tears. Yes. God, yes. Let's do all of it. He kissed her then, deep and sure, and Verena felt the last pieces of her broken heart knit together. Not perfectly. The scars from Daniel's death would always be there, part of her story, part of what had shaped her. But whole enough to love again, brave enough to build something new. They told the children the next morning over pancakes. Arya's specialty now, she insisted on helping every time. Both kids processed the news with the beautiful simplicity of the young. So Aiden would be my dad? Like, my actual dad? Milo asked. If you want that, Aiden said carefully, your dad, Daniel, will always be your father. The one who was there first, the one you remember. I can't replace him, but I'd like to be your dad too, if you'll have me. Milo looked at Verena, seeking permission. She nodded, tears already streaming down her face. Okay, Milo said, his voice small but certain. Yeah, I want that. And Mom would be my mom? Arya looked between them. My real mom? I would love that more than anything, Verena said, pulling Arya onto her lap. If you want me to be. I do want that, because you already act like my mom. You help with my homework and you tuck me in and you make sure I eat vegetables even when I don't want to, Arya giggled. And you love me even when I'm grumpy, especially when you're grumpy. They spent the rest of the day in the garden, planting more sunflower seeds for next year's crop, talking about wedding plans and adoption paperwork, and all the mundane details that comprised building a life together. Marcus appeared at one point with champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for the children, and they toasted to new beginnings. The legal processes took months, background checks and home studies and endless paperwork that made Verena grateful for her lawyers. They married in the garden in early spring, a small ceremony with just family and close friends, the children serving as both flower girl and ring bearer. Milo gave Verena away with solemn pride, and Arya clung to Aiden's hand throughout the ceremony, her face split in a grin that never wavered. The adoptions were finalized that summer, both on the same day by design. Milo officially became Milo Coleshaw, and Arya became Arya Shaw Cole, their hyphenated names a testament to their blended origins. The judge who presided over the proceedings commented that in 20 years on the bench, she'd never seen a family so clearly meant to be together. That evening, as they celebrated with an elaborate dinner that the children had helped plan, Milo pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. I made something, he announced, for all of us. He unfolded the paper, revealing a drawing that was more sophisticated than his early stick figures, but still charmingly childlike. 4 people standing in front of a house, surrounded by enormous sunflowers. Labels identified each figure: Mom, Dad, Milo, Arya. Look, Milo pointed to each figure in turn. It's our family, all of us, together. Verena's vision blurred as she studied the drawing. Not just the figures, but the details. The house that was clearly their mansion, the garden in the background, the sun shining overhead. But most importantly, the way all 4 figures held hands in an unbroken chain. It's perfect, she whispered. Can we frame it? It's just a drawing, Mom. It's not just a drawing, it's proof. Proof that families don't have to look a certain way to be real. That love can rebuild what loss tried to destroy. That sometimes the best things come from the broken pieces we thought could never be whole again. Aiden wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close while the children examined the drawing, debating where it should be hung. You know what the best part is? He murmured in her ear. What? This time next year, we'll look at this drawing and think about how young we all were. How much we've still grown since then. Because this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. He was right, Verena realized. They weren't finished healing or growing or learning how to be a family. They'd probably make mistakes, have conflicts, struggle through hard times. But they do it together, with patience and love, and the kind of commitment that didn't run when things got difficult. She looked at her family, her husband, her son, her daughter, and felt a peace she hadn't known was possible. The cameras were long gone, deleted and forgotten, replaced by actual presence and participation. The walls she'd built around her grief had been dismantled brick by brick, revealing the woman underneath who was capable of loving again. And the man who'd started as a stranger, hired to care for her son when she couldn't, had become the center of everything that mattered. That night, after the children were asleep and the celebration had wound down, Verena stood in the garden alone, looking at the sunflowers silhouetted against the twilight sky. She thought about the morning Aiden had first arrived, how desperate and hopeless she'd been, how certain that nothing would ever be right again. She thought about the cameras she'd installed, the surveillance she'd relied on, the way she'd tried to control every variable while missing the most important truth, that healing required presence, not observation, that love required risk, not safety, that family was something you built through showing up, not something you could manufacture through perfect planning. Behind her, the house glowed with warm light, and through the windows she could see Aiden moving through rooms, checking locks, turning off lights, performing the small rituals of home. Her home. Their home. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars, to Daniel's memory, to whatever force had brought Aiden Shaw into their lives at exactly the moment they needed him most. The sunflowers rustled in the evening breeze, and Verena smiled. For the first time since losing her husband, she wasn't watching life through a screen. She was living it, messy and imperfect and absolutely real. And it was more beautiful than anything she could have planned. She turned and walked back toward the house, toward the light, toward her family waiting inside. The cameras were gone. The walls were down. And in their place was something infinitely better: love, chosen daily. Family, built from broken pieces. Hope, growing tall like sunflowers, reaching for the sun. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.